Welcome, Notre Dame fans, to another post-game edition of the Irish Breakdown podcast. I am Vince D'Addario. That guy over there is Brian Driscoll. And we just got done watching Notre Dame beat Virginia 28-3, a 25-point win.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good on the face of it. Winning by 25.
It is good. It is
Right.
good. It
sounds
is good.
Yes,
Yeah.
it sounds good, and it is good
Yeah.
in many regards. But we're going to dive right into that, Brian.
As to why it wasn't good enough.
Correct. So let's talk big picture here. Notre Dame got their 9th win of the season. So anybody out there that picked Notre Dame to go over the 8.5 wins that we talked about so much in the preseason, today is the night that you cash.
If that's the one thing we said that, I rarely talk about betting at the beginning of the year. I was like, if you don't take the over on that, so everyone that took the over, that was one of the easiest money ever.
I did.
So that means you're treating me to dinner one of these days.
I didn't make that much money. I've seen you and me eat, but anyway, but rude. I said and me.
Me. You said me first. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, well,
All right. I don't know what happens to Vince's connection. I don't know where Vince went. Look, let's dive into it, right, Vince?
Yeah,
so
please.
First of all, we have to start, in my opinion, with this because I was told this morning. I'm going to find out what time that text was. I was told by a friend this morning, a really good source of mine, that I'm going to try to find it. It was at like 12:30 p.m. like this afternoon.
Yeah,
I got a text from a friend saying Notre Dame's going to have some problems tonight. I'm like, okay, what's going on? You can imagine what's going through my head, right? Like, okay. Yeah. And apparently last 24 to 48 hours, 24 hours, a flu bug has just ripped through the locker room. And I think you could even hear it a little bit in Brian Kelly's voice and how he talked. It sounds like it got to them. I heard it was like 20 plus players that had gone through. That's the reason that Myron Tagovailoa didn't play. That's the reason Drew White didn't play. I was told the defense was hit even harder by it than the offense, which I think speaks volumes about the performance that they had tonight. So,
the players that he named in the post-game press conference were all defensive players.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
Which is usually kind of how that kind of thing goes on a road game when it hits later in the week, because you're sitting together on the plane, you're in the hotel room together, you're eating together as a defense, right? That because
he mentioned Nana, he mentioned Ramon Henderson, he mentioned he mentioned Drew,
who played,
yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So there were a lot of guys that played with the flu bug. The reason that Drew White and Myron Tagovailoa didn't play is because they had really spiked temperatures. And you can play with the flu. It's just the thing you have to monitor is the symptoms. You're going to be fatigued, you may have head, whatever, but you've got to measure the temperature. And when your temperature gets beyond a second point, you can't play. I don't care how much you want to play. It's dangerous to put a kid out there. And that's kind of what happened with Drew and Myron, according to my sources. Yet they went out there and handled their business and got the W.
Correct.
The players absolutely need to be commended for that. 100% need to be commended for that because they fought through adversity, right? And you say, well, Virginia didn't have their starting quarterback. They didn't have their starting running back. Okay, true. Notre Dame didn't have their 2 captains on defense. Okay. And so to me, that is a huge plus. Huge props to this team. And that's what I love about this team. I love the players on this team because they do not quit. They don't make excuses. They battle, right? They battle. And that's something to me that you have to say first and foremost is number one takeaway from this game. But the bigger picture is, yes, you got a W, but again, it was a missed opportunity to have the kind of convincing win you need. You're up 21-0 at halftime, and we'll get into this. Let's just do it now, Vince. You're up 21-0 going, late in the second quarter. Ramon Henderson picks off a pass, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Ramon Henderson playing safety in a minute. But you intercept a pass. You've got the ball with 1:16 left, and you've got a decent amount of time to go. But you have 1:16 and 2 timeouts, and they run the clock out.
Yep.
And it's just that take your foot off the pedal mentality that's just intertwined into this program, and it's because of it's intertwined in the DNA of Brian Kelly. And this is exactly what. So people say, well, maybe they probably don't score, and maybe they don't, but that's not the point. The point is this: when you have that mentality of just not having that killer instinct, you can't turn that switch on and off. I've said this 1,000 times. And it's true at every single level of football, Vince, from Notre Dame to the NFL down to high school and Division III or whatever levels people don't think are real football, okay? everyone that actually knows football, plays football, has coached football, knows you can't turn that switch on and off. You either are that team or you are not. And Brian Kelly does not allow this team to be that. And lo and behold, you come out in the second half, and Virginia is playing with more emotion than Notre Dame is.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's offense scores 1 touchdown in the entire second half. 2 turnovers, you turn it over on – they turn it over on downs another time. It's one of those things where this should have been a 52-3 game, a 45-3 game.
100%.
And because the committee's going to look at this and say, okay, Virginia scored 23 points. Notre Dame scored 28. Virginia didn't have their quarterback, who leads the nation in second in the nation in passing. They started a true freshman. What happens if Notre Dame, what happens in this game if he plays? Notre Dame could only score 38 points. Notre Dame wasn't missing any offensive players. Now, maybe some of them had the flu, but they weren't missing any offensive players. And so you see it, it's just that missed opportunity. And look, the team ranked right behind Notre Dame, Oklahoma State, tonight played TCU and beat them 63-17. So yeah, we're always looking at the teams in front of Notre Dame, but Oklahoma State still has a chance to play a ranked Oklahoma team coming up, potentially twice, and then the next week they play a Texas Tech team that's got 6 wins now. So,
and there's nothing about Notre Dame's schedule that's going to help their resume.
And that's the thing is Oklahoma State's going out there beating a not good TCU team 63-17. Notre Dame's beating a Virginia team 28-3. And you may not think it matters, but if championships are still your objective, which they should be at Notre Dame, these kind of things are what get you into the playoff. And that's the thing that's frustrating. And we know this because we saw it happen in 2015 when Notre Dame had 2 wins that were ugly over Wake Forest. They beat 28-7, and then BC 19-16, and they fell out of the top 4 despite they continued to win. You're not even in the top 4. You're 9th. You've got to leap some people. And you had a chance. Michigan went on the road and played a 6-3 Penn State team and won 21-17. You had a chance to go on the road and play a 6-3 football team and really dominate them and kind of pad that resume to maybe leap in front of the 2 Michigan schools, and they missed that chance. And yes, 28-3 is a good win, but it's kind of what I've always said, Vince, and you and I have talked about this. It's one thing to win, and winning is important, but the reality is it's about how you play. It's about the process. It's about living up to a standard. And that is something that I feel like has always been a bit of an issue, is just not playing to that standard and then feeling like you can just kind of turn it on and off. And obviously they weren't able to do that because you had chances to really open this game up and put it away, and they didn't take advantage. So that's the frustrating thing. I mean, I'm looking in the chat. I'm looking on the chat here, the chat on the message board, on Twitter, and it's just like there's a lot of frustrated people with a win. And part of me says, hey, they won, right? That's a good thing. But the other part of me says, yeah, I get it. I understand the frustration, because you watch Georgia play and you watch Ohio State play and you watch, think about it. Ohio State, if my math is correct, beat a 6-3 number 19 ranked Purdue team who's healthy by more than Notre Dame beat a 6-3 unranked Virginia team who didn't have their best player, potential All-American quarterback. And yeah, guess what? The gap between you and Ohio State just widened today. And that's the frustrating thing for me when I look at this game.
No, that's fair. I mean, everything you said is fair. I honestly felt today as I was watching college football and I watched Michigan, struggle against Penn State, and they should have lost that game, to be honest with you, if James Franklin doesn't hold up his trophy for worst in-game head coach in college football.
Yeah.
And just really cement his name on that trophy. But, I thought that there was going to be a legitimate argument when we get together on Tuesday night to talk about the fact that Notre Dame should lead both Michigan schools. Yeah. I honestly, I was preparing my argument in my head because of what I envisioned that this win tonight for Notre Dame was going to look like.
And when they went up 21-0, I joined you.
Yeah, I was feeling okay, and when they were up 21-0, they left points on the board in the first half. And I was thinking, okay, it should be 28 right now, maybe even more. I'll take 21. If they could just duplicate what they did in the first half, 42-3, 42-3, 42-7, let's go. Like that would be just fine. And they just laid an egg in the second half, and it was just not good. And that conversation is now, it's a moot point. That's not a conversation
to a degree. I
mean, you could still have it. You could still talk about how, hey,
it's a tougher
Notre Dame
thing
won by 25. Michigan State only beat Maryland by what, 21? I think it was what.
But Maryland,
final score. And then Michigan struggled with Penn State.
19 is by 19.
You can have that argument if you want. I don't think it's worth anybody's time.
Yeah, but those teams are ranked ahead of you at this point in time, as Notre Dame.
Sure. And
which means the committee thinks they're better than you, which means you can't just have a similar score to them.
You have to do better.
You have to do better. And that's the thing. But there were some really good things to take out of
the defense did do better.
And that's what I want to talk about. The defense.
Yes.
Let's dive into that. Let's talk about the performance of the Notre Dame defense in this game, because you say, okay, no Brennan Armstrong. And so,
which I was genuinely disappointed about, by the way. I just want to say that.
I'm not going to lie to you. This is the first time ever I was like, good, because now you go out and get a 45-3 win.
Yeah.
Right.
I wanted him to play, and I wanted them to knock him out. That's what I wanted.
Mean.
I'm sorry. That's what I wanted.
I actually think it was like, look, I'm glad he didn't play for his sake, because you could see him out there throwing before the game. He was not right.
And from a Virginia coaching perspective,
this game means nothing for you.
Nothing.
You've got Pitt next week, and you've got Virginia
everything
Tech
in front of you.
If Virginia wins out, they're the coastal champs.
Right. 100% agree with that.
Beating Notre Dame doesn't do anything for that.
Right.
You need Brennan Armstrong healthy. He may not have been able to go anyway, but I wouldn't have played him. But they were also without the starting tailback, who is a solid player. He didn't even have 300 yards on the year. Notre Dame was out without Myron Tungavaloa and
two captains.
So first thing is, I had a couple people texting me like, why aren't they more aggressive? And we heard the Dusty Dvorak talking about why they weren't more aggressive. They wanted them just because Dusty was like, just blitz all night long, right? No,
you can't.
And the response football I said is like, look, to me, I'm actually okay with what Marcus Freeman did tonight. I actually like it, because here's the problem. When you face a team that's got a freshman quarterback and really good skill players, and we talked about this, Virginia's got really good skill players. You run the risk, if you're too aggressive, of that one time that your corner slips, or you have a blown coverage on a 6-man, 7-man pressure, and he hits that slant route behind, just somebody falls down and it's off to the races. Or there's that one post-snap switch, because Virginia does a lot. They didn't do quite as much as I thought they would tonight. They do a lot of post-snap switches and things like that, where you can lose somebody. You do that once on a blitz where it doesn't hit home, or the quarterback gets it out, and all of a sudden, they're hitting those big plays. And what I thought the game plan tonight was, what you're going to do is you're going to come out and you're going to say, hey, look, we're going to make this kid read it out. We're going to make this kid go through progressions and put a little bit on our front four. And I thought, and I do want to get to some super chats here when we're done with these initial thoughts, Vince, before we lose them. But I thought once you Virginia had a good game plan. They doubled Isaiah Foskey all night long, and the front four was having a little bit of trouble getting pressure on the quarterback. And so then they had to dial up pressure to get him. And they had like 4 drive-ending sacks, which was good. And it was like Justin Adamiola one time, it was Bo Bauer another, it was Ramon Henderson another, or no, that one. Yeah, that was. And then you had Riley Mills. So you were able to make those plays you needed to make to get them off the board. But what you eliminated was the big plays that made Virginia so effective. You and I talked about this yesterday, Vince, or was it Thursday? Wicks averages 19 yards a catch. Their tight ends at like almost 16 yards a catch. Like K'Tuan Thompson's like 15 yards a catch. This is a big play offense. You don't let them have the big plays. And as we saw tonight, they're not, with a freshman quarterback, they're not going to be able to just go up and down the field. I thought that was a good game plan. I thought it was sound. And I want to get into 2 things that I thought were huge about this game plan, Vince, before we do. I wanted to actually get to super chats before we started on the defense. But let's dive into some super chats, Vince.
Okay.
I know you're queued up for them.
I
don't want to lose any tonight.
No, I don't want to lose any either, because we've got some passionate fans that want to get their voice out, and I love that. Tommy Guns, Tommy, thank you very much. It's quote, they're going to have to pick it up, unquote. I believe referring to Brian Kelly's quote after the game in reference to the next 2 games. He's the one in the damn way. Can't say I disagree with you, Tommy.
Yeah.
He is the one in the way of them doing that. Because, well, we'll talk about
So,
offense.
yeah, to pick it up, they're going to, if you get the ball with 1:16 left and 2 timeouts, you may want to try to go do something, but that's not on the players. That's on you.
Tony Stangle with the super chat. Thank you, Tony. Brian, you need to calm us down a little bit. A lot of us are pretty pissed at Brian Kelly right now. That's not gonna happen.
There's nothing I can do to talk you off the ledge, Tony, because it's not just about tonight. It's just this has been kind of a common theme. And, there's some Brian Kelly's done so many great things at Notre Dame. It's frustrating that these are the kind of takeaways people have now in year 12 because it's just kind of getting old, where you've got this opportunity to really take another step and it's because of your decisions that you don't get there, and the players played their butts off tonight. It should have looked a little different. And it is frustrating. I get it, Tony. And I feel like if this isn't something we've seen over time, I don't think people would be pissed about it. I think the being pissed about it is a cumulative effect of just seeing this team not play to its potential. And then, just constantly hear the excuses, we didn't have this, we didn't have that. Well, they didn't have Brennan Armstrong, and they had a reason for their offense to go below their scoring average. This is a defense that came off last time they played. They gave up 66 points. This is a defense in Virginia.
BYU.
Yeah. I mean, right. This is a defense this season that's given up 59 points to North Carolina, 37 to Wake Forest, 28 to Miami, 33 to Louisville, 40 to Georgia Tech, and 66 to BYU. And Notre Dame, who was missing 0, they're missing Avery Davis, but you had a whole week to prepare for that. It's not
right. That was coming.
You didn't lose somebody day of the game like the defense did, and you scored 28 points.
Right.
You did some nice things, but again, you did some nice things against a bad defense, and that's the frustration. So, I'm going to talk you off the ledge because I want you to the next show, right? I don't want people getting frustrated and screw it, I'm not going to care anymore. You should still care. You should still be passionate. And I love that passion, but I'm not going to try to tell you something that I don't believe to make you feel better because I am frustrated by it. I mean, and there's people in the chat like, oh, they won. Some of you are never happy. If they won a title, you'd still be mad. Bull. Because I know what it takes to win a title because I watch all these other teams that win titles, right? And yes, the talent has to get better at certain spots, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But those teams have a DNA. They have a killer instinct that when they smell blood, they go for the kill. And this team has never had that under Brian Kelly. And it's frustrating. And those are the sort of the self-inflicted wounds that, to me, continue to hold this team back that just get a little bit frustrating on the offense side of the ball, the side that Brian Kelly has his most involvement in.
Yep, completely agree. Next super chat, Jason says, and thank you, Jason, for the super chat. He says the O-line took a step back this week.
Oh, that Brian Kelly's not going to accept that, right?
Nope.
He's going to look at the 200. He's going to get asked about this on Tuesday, and he's going to bring up. And thank you for the super chat, Jason. It's been a while. We haven't seen you in here, buddy. It's good to see you back on the show. He's going to talk about the 249 rushing yards. The homers on another site that you and I know about are going to talk, oh, look at the rushing yards. You guys just hate Jeff Quinn. Grow up. Okay. 68 of those yards came on 2 reverses that had nothing to do with the offensive line. Right. And hallelujah, you ran a reverse to Braden Lindsey and look what happened. They went for 31 yards. Right.
I love I love that stuff in the front. We'll talk about the first
love
half.
It. We'll get to that. Yeah. You had a 26-yard gain on 3rd down from Logan Diggs where he got hit 3 yards in the backfield by your 6-year senior right guard who you refused to take out of the game. And then he makes great plays, stiff arms another dude, hurdles a dude. Kyron's 22-yard touchdown, he had to kind of like wait and then cuts back and then makes 5 guys miss. The backfield for Notre Dame is phenomenal right now.
Yeah.
They get so many yards after contact, but people are going to look at the people that don't understand football are going to look at the 249. They're going to look at 6.6 yards per carry and be like, oh, you guys just hate the offensive line. No, we just know football.
Right. We have eyes, frankly. Right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And Jason, I would argue this is 2 weeks in a row the offensive line has took a step back over bad defenses. Virginia was giving up over 210 yards per game rushing, Vince.
Yes. And there was a play where Kane Madden was downfield and he practically tackled Kyron Williams, or I can't remember who was running the ball, but it ran into the backside of Kane Madden. I was like,
yeah. Yeah.
He's got more tackles than some of Notre Dame's defenders. That's all I'm going to say.
Stop. Let's go to the next one.
All right, fine. Josh Phillips. Josh Phillips. Thank you, Josh. Very much appreciate. He says Diggs' leap brought back flashbacks from UND versus Bama last year. Henderson at safety seems to be a better spot for him versus an extra corner.
Josh, when we get through the super chats, that's going to be the first thing we talk about. So I'm writing down Josh Phillips, Henderson right now because I want to give you a shout out on that because we're definitely going to talk about that because I have some very strong opinions. I did a complete emotional 180 tonight when I saw Ramon Henderson at safety. I was pissed when I first saw that. You seriously put Ramon Henderson at safety? Like, seriously, this kid has not done a thing all year. You're not going to play Xavier Watts? And then I watched Ramon Henderson play safety, and I had a complete 180. We'll discuss that as we get there, but I don't want to lose super chats, right?
Right.
So we'll discuss that more here in a little bit, Josh, but I'm definitely going to want to address that for sure.
All right. JP Buellsfeld. Thank you, JP. Very much appreciated. Brian and Vince, thank you for the Irish breakdown and especially your commitment to IB Nations for this show at 11:21 p.m. Eastern. And I'll tell you what, JP, this is our earliest post-game night game show all season. And I'm pretty fired up about it, to be honest with you. Like, this is Brian texted me. He's like, how does 11:15 sound? I'm like, glorious.
Except I made it for the wrong day.
Well, everybody makes mistakes. All right. Bronx ND fan. Thank you, Bronx. Really appreciate the super chat. Just as mad at BK, but more upset that my wife fried my IB hoodie in the dryer, and now she claims it. We screamed Freshmen every time they performed on the field tonight. Future is bright. Brian can't get over the fact that the hoodie has been fried.
Hey, do me a favor. Shoot me an email at brian@irishbreakdown.com.
It shrunk. Right. So now she's got a hoodie. So now we get the whole family. Get the whole family involved.
Yeah. Shoot me an email at brian@irishbreakdown.com and just remind me that I told you about the hoodie. So anyway, appreciate the super chat very, very much. But yeah, absolutely. It's amazing that when you put freshmen on the field, and let's also this was a really good freshman class. We've talked about that. Like, we've said before, this was one of Brian Kelly's best freshman classes when they signed. So that's part of it as well. But again, Logan Diggs got 0 playing time until Chris Tyree got hurt.
Right, exactly.
You're telling me he went from a kid not worthy of a single carry for like 5 games to what he's been since the first moment he's been on the field? Same with Lorenzo Styles, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. No, there was a point tonight where there were 6 true freshmen on the field at the same time.
Loved it.
6.
Jaden Thomas got some playing time.
I know he did.
He had a really nice block on the it was one of Kyron Williams' runs that picked up a first down.
Right.
Another third down run where he was hitting the backfield. Yeah.
Seriously. But yeah, 6 true freshmen on the field at one time. Like that, if you'd have told me that at the beginning of the season, I'd have told you.
They're a really poised group. Like even Deion Colsey's penalty, it was an effort penalty.
That was such a good block. It was such a good block until the end. The guy turned and he didn't let go.
But it was an effort mistake, right? Man. Like as a coach, I'm like, hey man, once I'm coaching them up and I'm correcting the mistake, but I'm not hammering them because I can live with a freshman making an effort mistake.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like
and it was
I can
way
dig
downfield.
That. Yes, he was blocking his butt off. He was battling. It wasn't like he got lazy and let hold up. No, he was bad. He just, hey, look, you got to finish it. When and that's something I would work on as a coach is we would work on actually blocking. And as you feel the guy leave you, you got to really drive to him to put him on the ground. And that's something that comes with time and experience. Deion, the next time that happens, Deion's going to bury that guy.
Right, exactly.
But it was an effort mistake. And I'll take an effort mistake over a false start or some of the stuff we've seen from the linemen this year. I'll take an effort mistake. Definitely. And I'll guarantee you Del Alexander's not ticked, or at least shouldn't be ticked at Deion for that. You correct the mistake, but you love the fact that he made the mistake playing his butt off.
Right. No question. No question. John A1 says, I'm not sure this team will beat a top 4 to 10 team in the New Year's 6. I'm not ready to go there yet. I'm sorry. I'm not ready to go there yet, John. It
depends on the matchup.
And yeah, it depends on a lot.
I understand the frustration.
I do too. I get it. The offensive performance tonight was boring. I get it. It was uninspired in the second half, and it lacked a killer instinct. I completely agree with all of that.
John knows you're not gonna beat a team like that scoring 28 points. But I'll say this: if Notre Dame was playing Virginia and Brennan Armstrong was playing,
then they don't take their foot off the gas and they continue to score. And that's my pushback to that whole thing as well. Because if they play the way they did in the first half and the second half, it's a 50-point output.
But that's what drives me flipping nuts.
Completely agree with you. But if they're playing a better team, they continue to score.
They don't only score 28 if Brennan Armstrong plays it. Now, I'm not saying they definitely would have won. I think they would have.
I do too.
But the game plan on both sides of the ball would have looked different if Brennan Armstrong played. And that's part, again, offensively, that's part of my frustration.
Exactly.
Why are you just okay winning 28-3 when you could have won 52-3 or 45-3 or even 35-3 for Pete's sake?
100% agree. And they were going to, I would have, honestly, my opinion of this game might change, even though really nothing else changed if they punch it into the end zone when they fumbled.
Right. When I still would have been a little frustrated, but not as frustrated.
But it would have felt different, right?
35-3 just looks different than 3. Than 28-3. Yeah.
And I thought that you were going to punch. Everybody did. I mean, they moved the ball down the field, no problem there. They were about to punch it in, mishandled, exchange, and all right.
All right. Who's Frabo?
All right. I know there's another one down here.
Yeah, we have a lot of them.
I know. I'm there we go. UIW Swimmer with the gigantic super
thank
chat.
you for that. Now he was one that earlier was talking about how just people not being, people are always up unhappy. And again, I understand that thought when you look at it from, hey, they won 28-3. Why are you frustrated? Because again, we're looking at it, and I want to make sure this is clear. We're looking at it from what do you need to do to go win a championship? That should be the standard for the head football coach at Notre Dame in the 12th season, right? You can't blame this on Charlie Weiss anymore. You can't blame it on personnel. If your personnel is not good enough, you've been here 12 years. That's you, right? And that's always the standard that you look at is this the kind of win that advances your program towards a championship? And it wasn't. And that's the frustration. I mean, you should have beat Virginia without their starting quarterback. You should have beat them.
I was looking at scores. Sorry about that. Kansas beat Texas.
They were killing them for a while.
By 1 point.
Did Texas try to go for 2?
57-56.
Oh, that means that they lost in overtime.
Yes, it does.
Kansas went
scored
for 2.
8, and Texas scored 7.
Wow, so Kansas went for the win. Wow, they're in trouble.
Love it.
They're in trouble.
I love it. I love it.
Texas is in big. They are 4-6 now.
Oh, man.
Wow.
Luckily, it's Sark's first year.
They were down 42-21 at one point in time. That's bad.
Unbelievable. All right. Dennis Rydell, thank you, sir, for the super chat. 25 points is 25 points. Agreed. Yeah. I agree with you. The difference in the score is 25 points.
Right.
Absolutely. But if anybody sits down and watches that game, should have been 35,
right,
or more,
40. Yeah, exactly,
right,
exactly. Yeah. And again, that's what we said at the beginning. It's a good win. It's a good win.
Yes,
I mean, especially when you think they did handle adversity. I mean, some of this stuff is legitimate. You have to be able to balance it and say, look, it's not all bad, it's not all great.
Right.
Let's talk about both. And and that's why we started talking about how these kids showed a lot of heart tonight. I mean, I'll be honest with you, there were a lot of kids that played with the flu tonight. And you know how it is when you first get it? It is a oh boy. It's kind of like you want to play with the flu. You want to play like your third day with it. You know what I mean? You're kind of coming down from it. You don't want to play when it first hits you. And a lot of kids did that today, and they played their butts off.
Right. Hey, Brian, I don't want to get you too excited, but I think they fixed the chat. Like,
really?
I can see everything, and every time I go down, I can still see everything.
Don't jinx it.
I know,
Don't jinx it.
I know. I'm just saying. It's like, ooh, baby. Right. Anyway, that means nothing to anybody else, but it's exciting.
Well, it does
for
all
us.
The people who's lost their super chats over the years.
Absolutely. Here's another one from Mike. Thank you, Mike Nolan, for the super chat. Very much appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And I believe we have a few more as I'm scrolling. Lots of comments. This is awesome. Mike Hoff says, does BK not think style points matter? 28 points against this defense was head scratching.
I agree. Mike. I don't think that he does.
No, he doesn't. He absolutely doesn't. He thinks he's being Mr. Nice Guy and being respectful and all that. It doesn't worry about anything else. Yeah. frustrated, but thank you for the super chat, Mike.
I do want to say this real quick. We did not give you enough love for that super chat, by the way.
I said huge.
I didn't. I didn't give you enough love for that because I kind of jumped into the point you made earlier, but greatly appreciate it. Because the one thing about this channel is you don't have to always agree with us.
Right.
And that's the thing is, and Swimmer was in there. He was making some points. And what I would encourage people to do is debate his point. Don't hurl insults. Care how frustrated you are. Because that's something I want to respond to.
Debate, don't hate.
Get out.
Oh, all right.
But I do appreciate that super chat very much. And I do appreciate the fact that you came into a channel where the hosts are clearly not going to be, I mean, you knew that we weren't going to be happy about this game. And you still came with your point of view. I respect that. It takes a lot of guts to do that. It's much appreciated.
And thank you for that super chat, man. That's huge.
Absolutely.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Coleman Clark says Kelly is disinterested in this job, it seems, as is kind of on cruise control, in my opinion. He coaches like he's in the NFL.
I've seen a lot of people say that before.
And that's an interesting take. I never really thought about that before because in the NFL, style points don't matter. It's just all about wins. That's all that matters.
And it used to be that way in college football.
True.
Before the playoff committee. I mean,
that's a good point.
It did. Style points always kind of mattered, but
to a degree, yes.
Yeah. You didn't want to be up 49-3 and you're throwing bombs, or like what Dave Aranda did to Oklahoma today. You're up 24-14 and you call a timeout so you can kick a field goal. Like that's not what we're asking Brian Kelly to do. You know what I mean? Like that's a little like I don't know about that one.
Well, Michigan State went for 2 and they were up by 19 and they went for 2 and there was like 8 minutes left in the game.
Now that I somewhat understand because
you're up 3 touchdowns with 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, but dude, we've seen crazier things. I mean, Notre Dame was up. Notre Dame was up on Georgia Tech by a similar score back in 2015, and Georgia Tech got 2 onside kicks. Remember that? And they ended up winning 30-22.
Yeah.
So I understand.
19 was enough.
To me, if there's more than 5 minutes in the game, it's enough time for some crazy stuff to happen.
Okay.
You get under 5 minutes, that's like, Now, if it would have been to make it a 28-point game where it's like 4 possessions, I'd have been like, come on, man. Come on now.
All right.
I got one.
We do.
I got one down here. Sorry, I didn't know you were down there yet. Sorry.
Maybe I'm everywhere. All right. 808 Eds. That's what I'm going with. 808 Eds. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Does Brian Kelly really believe he can win a championship without being able to dominate and put teams away consistently in today's college football? I mean, can he be this ignorant?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he can be.
That.
Yes. Yeah. I don't know how else to answer it without sounding any other way.
I honestly think that Brian Kelly believes that the goal is to just win, and that winning will get you to the championship stage, and then you can do A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
And that's actually fine. Like, I'll be honest with you. If Notre Dame was 9-0 and they have the same issue, they're 9-0, they're ranked number 2 or number 3, and they've got this flu thing, I don't get hurt. Don't make them, just win the game.
Keep winning.
But that's a different circumstance, right? 28-3 when that's not the one they're in. They're ranked 9th. They have to overly impress people to compete for a championship. So again, it's always context. The context always matters. If you'd have been in a situation where you're down 2 starters and all this other kind of stuff, and the circumstances are different, I would have had a difference of opinion. But that's not their circumstance, and we've seen this time and time again.
Somebody in one of my numerous radio shows earlier today asked me a big picture question about Brian Kelly, and I'm going to throw it at you later because I don't think this is the right spot. But later on in the show, remind me. I want to ask you a question. I want your answer because I have mine.
Making that note.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right.
But yes, he does believe that to be true.
100%. Will Claw. Thank you for the super chat, Will. Really appreciate it. Hey, guys, first ND game since the pandemic. Had fun in the ND section.
That's awesome.
With Irish fans. Also, horns down.
I know, right? And Will signed up for the message board today, too.
Ooh.
So he had a busy day. Yeah, signed up for the message board and went to this first Notre Dame game.
The game didn't end that long ago, and he's on with us.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Appreciate the super chat.
That is awesome.
Absolutely. Really appreciate it.
Fantastic. With the super chats keep rolling in, Brian.
They do.
Which is awesome. Let me just scroll down. Mike Padone jumping
Thank
in.
you,
What's
Mike.
up, Mike? Thank you very, very much. Appreciate the super chat, my friend.
I love this next one.
Mike Huff, thank you again for the super chat, because I believe this is his second one. Way too many fans okay with being good. I want great. That's a really good point.
Yeah. Complete contrast to the next one, Vince.
Well,
It's
my
a
buddy Sean
complete
Stiers was interviewing somebody that covers Virginia, and he's like, he asked him the question, what are the fans' expectations at Virginia? They're like 8-9 wins. That's our expectation. It's great. If you can do that, you can be here for a really long time. And I just listened to that. I just thought to myself, man, what a boring existence as a fan, if that's okay.
But you know what? Virginia won a basketball title recently. Because again, it's about what your program is, right? Virginia is more of a basketball program than they're a football program. their football team's never been great, but they had the great years with Ralph Sampson. They won the title a couple years ago. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I do.
It just
absolutely.
UCLA fans are fine winning 8-9 games a year as long as their basketball team is good, right? Same with Kentucky and Kansas and all. You know what I mean? But Notre Dame's a football school, and football schools should care about winning championships unless your name is Michigan.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. All right, I'm just gonna let that one lie right there. Dennis Rydell, thank you very much for the super chat. Is that his second one? I feel like it is.
Yeah, it is. Thank you for that, Dennis.
Yes, thank you, Dennis. I have been watching ND football since 1968. We have forgotten all Notre Dame football the 20 years before Kelly.
No, we haven't. We haven't. Here's the reality. Being better than Bob Davie, Ty Willingham, and Charlie Weiss is not the standard for success at Notre Dame. It's not.
Because of everything that happened before the last 20 years.
Because of what happened from 1968 until the end of the Lou Holtz era, right? Dennis, you've been following them long enough to have seen multiple national championships, correct?
Right.
You saw Ayers in 74. You saw Devines in 77, right? You saw, because 66.
Yep.
So you didn't see that one.
You
saw Ayers in 74. You saw Devines in 70. Was it 77 or 77?
77.
You saw Lou's in 88, right? I think maybe you have forgotten that, right? With all due respect, because just not being bad or just being not as bad as the previous what we saw is not the standard. Now we can appreciate all the things Brian Kelly has done to get here. And I do. It's just that doesn't mean that you accept not excellence, right? And I looked at my wife and I said, man, I just did not enjoy watching that game. She's like, really? Why? And I said, I want to watch excellence, right? I aspire to see excellence. And that game tonight was simply it's another example of our dudes are way better than your dudes.
Yeah, way better.
And now, first half, I was fired up about the first half. I'm not going to lie. I was fired up until that last minute 16. And then the rest of the game was like, here we go.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's frustrating.
All right, Coleman Clark, his second super chat, I do believe, for today. He says, I think Kelly, and thank you, Coleman. I think Kelly coaches 2 more years and he's done. Braum from Purdue will be the next coach. My bold prediction.
Mm-hmm. I think the next coach is already on staff.
I think you're probably right about that, but we shall see. That'll be a fun debate, though. I can't wait for that show. All right. TJ0311. Thank you, TJ, for the super chat. Great isn't good enough. Great isn't there. We expect awesome. Yes, and you should. There's no reason not to. Agree with you. Jackson Hignite. Jackson, thank you for the super chat. ND fan from Arkansas. Ooh, all right. I like that.
We have several from Arkansas. We had someone who was at our tailgate who also Nate. I think it was Nate. Came with his wife and 2 kids. They were at the tailgate for USC and left a super chat. I think one of the last couple of weeks. So yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And we had somebody else because remember we had 2 people from Arkansas on the same show. Remember that?
That's right. Okay, so, you're absolutely right. Thank you.
Love all the Razorbacks in our show. Yeah,
love that. Definitely disagree with how y'all feel about a 25-point road W, but we'll see if the Hogs can help out by beating Bama next week. That'd be great. I'd be all for that. All about that, man. Thank you, Jackson, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Tommy Guns jumping back in. Thanks, Tommy.
Savage.
Well, Michigan is a basketball school, so
well played.
Love it.
Well played.
Only basketball schools put basketball players on their football uniform.
That's
right? Is that not okay? I'm just saying.
Oklahoma would disagree with you, but I get your point. They don't have recruits take pictures in front of a giant basketball player, though. So I'm just saying, football recruits.
It's also
saying.
fair. That's also fair.
Yeah.
I think Notre Dame should put a football player on their basketball jerseys. Maybe it'd help them win more often. All right. Griff Weidler, thank you for the super chat, Griff. Not to be weird, but I love you guys. Also, I can't wait until USC hires James Franklin.
Yes. Agree on both accounts.
Love you too. I can throw that out there and be very secure about it. And I pray, like at the end of my prayers, at the end of the night, I throw in a little bit and hire James Franklin at USC.
That's right.
Like that would be glorious. I'm just saying. After today, it's again really a fake.
All he did today was affirm everything we already knew.
Yes, exactly. A fake field goal on 4th and 2 from the 4. That was your call.
Right. I think we lost Vince's audio there real quick. Vince froze up on us, so I'm going to go to the next super chat here from Jim Ryan. And Jim says Freshmen played a bunch. If we score in the fourth quarter instead of turnover the ball in the red zone, then we are having a much different conversation. To a degree, I would say yes. But I still think there would have been I would have liked to seen one more on there. But yeah, I think so. But again, you should not have put yourself in a situation where you needed that play to get there. And I guess that would be kind of my frustration with the whole thing is you just don't put yourself into that situation. And Vince, you froze like this.
Yeah.
Which was great. So as you were expressing your love for James Franklin.
Fair enough.
But again, Jim, I think to a degree you're right. And we kind of mentioned that earlier. I still would have been a little frustrated, but yeah, it would have been different because what we saw was after the sputtering of the first couple drives, right? You have the 3 and out, and then you have the pick, and then you say, okay, come out in that next drive, and you go right at them, and then the reverse, and then all that, and you score. And then they did exactly what I like, what we've talked about. I want to see when you put your backup quarterback in the game of a game that you're in control. Yes. They put him in there with the rest of the team, starters. And they let him go down the field. But then of course you turn the ball over, and those are the kind of things.
Starters and rotation players. I mean, it was, but yeah,
it would have been the same guys that Jack Cohn was working with, right?
100% agree.
Because Kyron Williams went in there at one point in time and all that, right. But that's what you want to see. But you got to finish that drive off. But my point is, they shouldn't have needed that fourth quarter drive with your backup quarterback to
put it out of I'm not out of reach, but make it where it
to get that style points kind of thing,
right?
Because I mean, look, you could say in the final 31 minutes, Notre Dame outscored Virginia 7-3. The committee will look at that. And look, you only have to look at what the guy said, whatever that the president is now, about the Notre Dame North Carolina game. Well, they were only beating North Carolina 17-13 at halftime. They look at all that minute detail. They do. And they're going to say, okay, Notre Dame had a great stretch in the first 2 quarters, but then they kind of sputtered. Right. While, Georgia's putting away Tennessee, who's a much better team than Virginia, when Virginia doesn't have Brennan Armstrong, Right. Oklahoma State's putting away TCU, who a week ago beat Baylor. I mean, TCU's coming off a win over Baylor, correct? So they're going to look at that and say, hey, that's impressive. So that's kind of where we're coming from, Jim. But yeah, if they would have put that last one in, probably feel a little bit different about this one, to a degree.
Tommy Guns jumping back in. Tommy Guns he's feeling it tonight. I appreciate it, Tommy.
Tommy's fired up.
Too many people in this country accept good enough and mediocrity. We used to believe in excellence as the standard as well. Yeah, Look, man, in so many aspects of my life, I completely agree with that. And I see it on a daily basis in the public school system. I see it on a daily basis when I take my kids to sporting events, youth sporting events. I see it all the time. And I completely agree with you, Tommy, and it's not okay. And I think the future of our country is paying for it. I'll get off my soapbox now. Sean Fahey. Thank you, Sean, for the super chat, man. That is awesome. He says, new to IB this year. Welcome, Sean. He goes, my son is a freshman at Notre Dame. Congratulations on that, by the way.
It depends on how you look at it.
Well,
congratulations to your son, not so much congratulations to your bank account for
well,
the next 4 years.
hey, man, you put that all on the kid. All right? I take care of those. They're called student loans for a reason. All right. I say congratulations to Sean because he raised a kid who got into Notre Dame. Right. So congratulations, my friend.
Every time I hear someone say that their kid got into Notre Dame, I just automatically assume they had that Ned Beatty moment in the factory, you know? Everyone whose kid gets into Notre Dame's a factory worker. It looks like Ned Beatty to me.
Yeah.
So, that's how I feel.
That's fantastic.
That's how I feel about it.
He goes, so glad I found you guys. Really brought me up to speed quickly on the team. Keep me up to date throughout each week and also bring in all the history of the program. Man, I'm glad you're here, Sean. Yes. I appreciate that, man. That is awesome. And good luck to your boy at Notre Dame. Okay, moving on. Thank you for the super chat. God's Thumbs 22. Yes. God's Thumbs 22. Xavier Watts, though, he makes plays, y'all.
Yeah.
He did make plays tonight when he got in.
Yes.
I agree with you. And it was an open field tackle. I can't remember exactly. It was towards the end of the game, maybe. They caught a ball. It was short of the first down. And somebody that I was watching the game with was like, just tackle him, just tackle. I'm like, Xavier Watts, man.
Don't worry, 2-6 is coming.
Yeah, he's going to be fine. Like, I just have complete faith that Xavier Watts is going to complete the tackle and be where he needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at with Xavier Watts, at least for the now and the near future. Richard Maltby, what's up, Richard? Thank you for the super chat, man. Logan Diggs is a dog. Mm-hmm. Completely agree, man. That boy is fun to watch. He's just fun to watch with the football in his hands. There was one run that he made, and it was a zone read, and they gave him the football, and he stopped, like literally stopped in the backfield, like he didn't have the ball, and waited for stuff to open up, and then just hit the hole.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, that was a veteran move. I mean, that was a veteran move, man. And I think he picked up a first down on that. Like that was awesome. I mean, that was stinking awesome. So, all right, Richard, thank you again. And Dennis Rydell back. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you again for another super chat. He says, so we are still in the running for the playoffs with no 5 stars, and we are hating on Kelly.
He's saying no 5-star safety, talking about Kyle Hamilton.
Thank you. No 5-star safety, and we're hating on Kelly. We could have played better, but we're still in the hunt. We have no problem with the defense. The defense played great, Dennis.
Right.
It's the offensive side of the ball that I have a problem with.
The team without the fight. No, we haven't said a negative thing about the defense so far.
I mean,
it's the offense that isn't missing its 5-star tight end or all-American running back or, whatever else. Look, Dennis, here's the thing. You've been in our show for a long time, Dennis. You know where we're coming from. And I appreciate the fact that you continue to push back. I love that. I really respect that because it'd be very easy for you to just kind of go along with the flow, right?
Sure.
And so to me, I respect the fact that you're willing to challenge us on this. But here's the thing. They're still in the hunt. That's exactly why a 25-point win. Look, here's what y'all have to understand. The committee does not scoreboard watch. That is so obvious that they don't scoreboard watch. In fact, it's almost to the point where they're giving Michigan more credit for their loss to Michigan State than they're giving Michigan State credit for the win because of the stupid game control thing. Right. And so they're going to look at this and say that, that Notre Dame, went below what Virginia gives up. And I mean, Virginia was giving up over 30 points a game. Notre Dame went under that.
Right.
With nobody out on offense. Right. They're going to look at how Oklahoma State went out and beat TCU, who last week beat Baylor, right, who was ranked 11th, and beat them 62-17. So, yes, they're still in the hunt, which is exactly why you needed a more convincing win. And, it's not just about the 28-3. It's not. It's about why it was 28-3. And that's what we made very clear. It's the moment you took your foot off the gas in the second quarter, you never got it back.
Right.
And that's the point, Dennis, and maybe it doesn't work. I mean, for all we know, they could have thrown a couple incompletions and punted and all that, and it wouldn't have worked. And that could have very well happened. But it's about the mentality. It's about the mindset of attack. Right. And this team just doesn't really have that on offense. And look, the defense has carried this team for years. And the reason why is because Brian Kelly has always turned the defense ever since he hired Mike Elko. He's turned the defense over.
Yes.
Just has.
Which he should have done. Absolutely. And he needs to do that with the offense.
Right. So, I understand where you're coming from, Dennis, and I respect where you're coming from. But the point is this isn't the Notre Dame of the 1960s where they're going to get the benefit of the doubt for winning, right? They have to win in a way that proves that they belong on that stage, and beating Virginia. Here's the thing: beating an injured Virginia team by 25 is not going to be more impressive than Wake Forest beating a healthy Virginia team by 20. It just isn't. And that's the point. And that's where we're coming from on this.
Yep. All right. Tommy Guns back. Tommy, thanks again. He says the TV announcers were garbage.
That was a rough listen.
I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention.
That was a rough
listen. Some of the stuff I heard Dusty Gorolchik say was just head scratching, and so I pretty much tuned out. To be
he was just repeating what the staff told him.
I mean, it was
during the week.
It was rough. It was rough. Kevin Woolard in with a super chat. Thank you, Kevin,
Thank you for that,
very
Kevin.
much. BK, lack of a killer instinct is in his DNA, and it always shows up in his players and teams. That's why we're always the bridesmaid and never brides under BK. It's a great way to put it, because you're absolutely right, Kevin. There's no question about it. And I want to expound on what you said, Brian, about the fact that he gave over the defense, and I agree with that. And if he would have given over the offense, even if it is to Tommy Rees, okay, I feel like we would have seen the first half the entire game. And I feel like they would not have taken their foot off the gas.
Yes.
Because I thought and we're going to talk about the offense, but I thought the first half was inspired. I love what I saw, man.
Let's get through these super chats, because I do want to get back, because we want to give love to the people giving the super chats, but we also want to kind of get to some of the stuff that the specifics of the game, because there were some really good things to come out of this game.
No, Kevin Dillon, thanks for the super chat, Kevin. Really appreciate it. He says, I always coach like we were down by 4. That's the way you should coach until there's,
Yeah, I mean, I never coach like that. I just always said there's things that we demand of you as coaches. We demand that you always go hard, that you always focus on executing, always treat it like it's a nothing game or whatever, right? You just pedal to the metal, you do it, you meet the standards, you meet standard. Right. And the score doesn't necessarily matter as much. And that's what that's the entirety of Nick Saban's process, the process at Alabama. It's not the score that matters. It's the standard that you set, because when you have better players and you play to that standard, you're going to win. And that's the point. It's about, and that's why you'll hear Nick Saban rip his team more after a win than he does after a loss. Usually, not always, usually. And that's the thing. It's because it's like, yeah, we won, but we didn't play to the standard that it's going to take to go out and win a championship. And that's the point.
Tyrell Wilson, thanks for the super chat, Tyrell. Really appreciate it. He says, what a game by Ramon Henderson, bro. Do we keep him at safety, though? And you wanted to touch on that in a minute. So
yes, we just got a couple things, Tyrell, because Tyrell and Josh bring up the same thing. Josh, also another super chat. Great show, great analysis. ESPN crew, not so much. Agree. And my man, Tim Opal, with the super sticker, $9.99. Thank you for that, Tim, very, very much. And we have gotten through the super chats.
Which is awesome, guys.
Let's
Thank
pull
you
up
so
Tyrell's super chat, and then Josh Phillips also had one earlier. So let me walk you through my thought process on this. When I saw Ramon Henderson at safety at the beginning of the game, I was pretty hot. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Because this kid has not made a play all season at cornerback. And I'm just like, seriously? I'm trying to think of what justification could you have for not – I get the justification for not playing Houston, because Houston has not been playing well. But, like, how do you not give Xavier Watts his shot, right? And he eventually got it. But I'm like, Ramon Henderson, really? Then Ramon played. He was balling. He looked so much more comfortable at safety, Vince. Coming downhill, he didn't have to flip his hips. He didn't have to think. He was just coming downhill. And we finally saw his speed flash.
Yeah.
Because we've always heard about how fast he is. And you saw it on the interception. He covered so much ground on that interception.
Did he?
Oh, gosh, yes. I mean, it was impressive. And then the play coming off the edge, he played so well, Vince. And it wasn't just a couple highlight plays. He was good in coverage. I think he gave up one completion, but he was right on top of the guy. It required literally the quarterback had to put it in the perfect spot, in my opinion, to do it. I thought Ramon played excellent. Then they brought Xavier in, and he played really well. All of a sudden, if they're willing to make this a permanent move, I feel so much better about the potential of the safety position next season. Because the one thing that we've always said about Ramon is we've always acknowledged the fact that the kid has great track times, right?
Yeah.
He's fast, but he's not a corner. He's not a natural corner. Tyrell and Josh, this is the first time that we saw him look like a football player. That was my big takeaway, Vince. He looked like a football player tonight.
And you've said, and I remember you saying this, that Ramon Henderson just isn't a football player. Like you've said those words in the past. You're muted.
He looks like a track player that's never looked comfortable playing corner. His technique is bad. He doesn't know how to play the ball. He doesn't. I mean, we've seen the mistakes he's made. He never looked comfortable. Tonight, as a safety, where he could keep everything in front of him, just fly to the ball and fly off coverage, he looked like a football player.
I feel like they found something.
Fast football player. Now, I don't know if this is a permanent move, but Tyrell, to answer your question, I would absolutely keep him at safety. Say, well, what about corner? Ryan Barnes, Phillip Riley, get him ready to play.
It's time.
We saw Ryan Barnes playing a lot of special teams tonight. So clearly they're working him in. So I would leave Ramon at safety. I flat out would. And I thought DJ played well tonight. DJ Brown played well tonight. Houston looked better in a more limited role coming off the bench.
I wish he would have picked up that fumble that hit him in the chest. I know he wasn't ready for it. Who would be? Right. But, man, I wish he would have snagged that thing.
But I thought the safeties played really good football tonight. Really good. And a lot of the stuff where Virginia was wanting to throw deep but couldn't, it's because the safeties were all over stuff.
Every time a ball was let go deep, there was a Notre Dame player right there. And in great cover. And that includes Isaiah Pryor, by the way, who had some really nice.
They had him covering tight ends. Yeah. That's where he needs to be, covering tight ends. He had a great play. Did you see the one at the end where the guy had the ball in his hands and you could see Ramon or Isaiah like literally take his hand and just punch through the ball?
And it was right after two catches by Notre Dame where Virginia didn't turn around and they didn't play the football.
They didn't play the guy's hands.
He had his head turned around and he played the ball out of the guy's hands. I mean, dude, it was great. Awesome.
The safety play tonight was, from what I could tell watching it, was excellent. Here's the other thing I liked about the game plan. So when you look at Marcus Freeman's game plan, Vince, for me, I understand the temptation of heat up a freshman quarterback, but I'm just telling you, if you're heating up my freshman quarterback, eventually we're going to hit a play that you either didn't hit home or somebody falls down and there's nobody back there, right? And I just don't know. Make the freshman make read after read after read, because here's the reality, as we saw tonight. Eventually, he's going to make a mistake, or your pass rush is going to get to him, and that's the whole key. And they were aggressive, but not overly aggressive. And on one play, they're playing like cover. They're playing like a quarters, like they're playing quarters. They look like to me like they're playing quarters to the field and two to the boundary a lot. It looked to me, I'm gonna have to go back and watch it again. But at times both safeties are deep, and then other times he's blitzing them. I mean, there was plays where DJ Brown blitzed multiple times. We saw Ramon Henderson come off the edge on a blitz and just blew the quarterback up. I mean, the announcer like, the running back's got to make. The running back had no time to react to it. He was by him so fast. I thought the game plan was really good. They were multiple for the second week in a row. They were multiple. They mixed up their looks. They mixed up their coverages, and they had very, very few assignment mistakes that I could see. There was a couple times I thought Cam Hart was really late reacting to. He was playing real off coverage, and was really late reacting to throws. There was also a play, and I don't know if this was just how it was designed or if somebody made a mistake, but they hit a 15-yard seam throw at the beginning where the tight end's running. K'Tawan Thompson is running, and there's nobody on him. And Isaiah Pryor's coming from the other side. So either Isaiah Pryor, they either designed it where there was no help, and you're asking the linebacker on the other side of the field to get up underneath that, or there was some sort of blown assignment. Either way, it wasn't great, but Isaiah Pryor closed on him in a hurry. I thought it was going to be like a 30-yard gain. Went for 15 because Isaiah closed on him so quick.
Yeah, I thought Isaiah Pryor played a really good game today. I was, again, the defense the defensive staff, and Marcus Freeman, however you want to frame it, I still think that they are doing a fantastic job for the most part of putting him in position to be successful. They really
one
are.
time they didn't was a game where they had an injury during the game,
right?
And they
put him at safety, and they did some things that wasn't in his wheelhouse, if you will. But I have been very impressed with their use of him because
he's rewarded them with good football this year.
That's exactly right.
Good football this year.
That's exactly right. And it's made this transfer, like at first, after the first year he was here, I was like, man, Isaiah Pryor, it's kind of taking up a scholarship, you know what I mean? But they have found
special
his
teams
niche.
player. Yeah.
Right.
I think the game plan too, Vince, I mean, because you also have to consider you didn't have your starting defensive end in Myron Tagovailoa. You didn't have Drew White. I thought Bo Bauer played a great game.
He played his best game that I've seen him play.
He played smart.
And he was as a starter. That's a lot of pressure.
That's important.
Find out the day of.
Let's explain why that's important, Vince.
Because you know your role normally, right? And you're that's what you do, right? And you know what you're supposed to do. He's usually the guy who comes in on dime and nickel or whatever, right?
Rotation linebacker,
and you know your role. All of a sudden, you get thrust into a different role, and there's more pressure on you, and there's more opportunities for you to mess up, and there's more, you're taking over for a captain that's on this team, and that's a huge responsibility, both mentally and physically. And even Brian Kelly at the end of the game praised him and how he was getting the team in and out of different packages when they went Wildcat and all these different things, and he stepped up to the plate. I was very impressed with Bo Bauer today.
That's not what impressed me about it.
Oh, okay.
First of all, real quick, Paul Hamilton, thank you for that super chat, Paul. Appreciate that very much. And Kevin O'Neill, we'll get to yours here in a minute. Okay.
Perfect.
Here's what impressed me is somebody asked me tonight on Twitter and DM, and I haven't had a chance to answer them yet. So if you're watching the show, I apologize. I've been busy publishing stories and stuff. Like when you're talking, I'm still working on I'm editing Mike's, post game story and all that. But the reason Bo doesn't play more is because Bo has had a tendency to, the more he plays, the more mistakes he makes. He'll hit the wrong gap. He won't get up underneath the coverage. And we've seen that happen to him. I mean, there was the play against Cincinnati where he just did not drop into coverage and the tight end runs up the seam. Tonight, however, we saw what Bo Bauer looks like when he's not making those mistakes.
Right.
He was physical downhill in the run game. I mean, there's I think it was the first play of the game. I'm like, there's a little bit of a hole there. And then Bo just blows it up.
Stuck him. I mean, it was like hitting a wall.
He had a pressure. There was another play, though, where, again, Bo started to show some instincts. He pass rushed right over the center. The guy stoned him, so Bo drops. Like, okay, he got me. Instead of me trying to make a counter, let me drop in case the quarterback scrambles. And then there was the play where he got up underneath and broke that pass up. There was other times where, like, he jumped in, it's those plays you don't notice on film a lot of times where they wanted to throw to a guy, but Bo got into his drop, got up underneath the route, and so they had to go somewhere else, or maybe you don't notice that he ended up making a play. And we just saw it over and over again. And his sideline pursuit was excellent, and he just avoided the mistakes.
Right.
And that's the big thing for Bo, because the more he's played in the past, the more times you play him in the past, the more prone he's been to make a mistake. Tonight we saw Bo be, and here's the counter. Sometimes a guy that makes a lot of those mistakes because he's so aggressive, the way that he fixes it is become less aggressive. That didn't happen to Bo tonight. Bo did not lose aggressiveness tonight. He was their best linebacker. I mean, he outplayed JD Bertrand.
He did.
And JD was solid, but there was, he overran that one, run where the guy cut inside him for 10 yards, and he was solid, but Bo was the best linebacker tonight, inside linebacker. We saw Jack Kaiser making plays tonight. We haven't seen a lot of Jack Kaiser because they started the game in their this is the first time in a while we've seen them in their traditional 4-2-5 look. We haven't seen a lot of that recently because of the different types of teams that they've played. We saw a lot more of that tonight, and I thought that allowed Jack to make a lot more plays, and it was nice to see Jack more involved. Clarence Lewis bounced back with a really good game. We talked about how he's been kind of getting picked on, and he bounced back with a really good game, I thought. Just aggressive coming up in the run, good in coverage. They tried to challenge him a couple times deep. He was all over the guy. He bounced back with a really good game. I mean, that's the thing is, but even with all that, I don't think anyone on defense played great. Like, meaning like there was that one just like Kyle Hamilton 2 picks against Florida State, or Isaiah Foskey taking games over, or things. Nobody had that kind of like, wow, that guy played out of his mind.
Riley Mills?
It just no, because he just made a couple plays that were really good. Everybody just played pretty darn good, but it was as a unit, they were just, when the pass rush wasn't getting there, the secondary made stops. When the pass rush got there, they shut them down, right? It was great team defense. And as a defensive coordinator, period, Vince, I would always rather have that than we shut them down because Foskey just went off tonight.
Sure.
Or because Adam Miola was unblockable, like, the Jerron Jones Miami game a few years ago where he had like 5 sacks, right? Or the Jerry Tillery Stanford in 2018 where he just took the game over. It was a game that you look at it and you say, boy, nobody had like that All-American game, but just you could argue maybe Ramon because he had a couple like big game-changing plays, but it was just more about how everybody did their job and did it hard. That's the thing is Notre Dame. This was the first one of the criticisms I had of this team, Vince, and I want to get your opinion on this.
Okay.
I felt that this is an athletic defense, but I've never felt it was a super physical defense. Tonight, I felt like we saw some pads popping tonight from the Notre Dame defense, and it wasn't just Bo. I felt like it was kind of all around. Tonight was the most physical we've seen Notre Dame play all year, I thought. What are your thoughts on that?
I felt like they played more loose, which led to being more physical. Does that make sense? Like I just felt like Marcus Freeman allowed them to play, and they weren't thinking about it, and they weren't. And I don't know. We talked about this going into the season, how we felt like that was going to be more like what Marcus Freeman's defense was going to be, and all those different things. But tonight was one of those nights where I just felt like that was it. Like that, it came to fruition tonight, and they were playing with a confidence and a swagger and a looseness that translated into being physical, if that makes sense. Like that's how I felt about the defense. Like they were dogs, man. They were playing to play defense, and they had an attitude about it. And
they had every excuse in the world not to.
Absolutely.
Think about it. You're missing actually 3 captains because Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
You're missing your All-American. You're missing a 3-year starter in Myron, a 3-year starter at linebacker. And you had every reason to say, well, it wasn't our fault and all, but you didn't. I mean, they answered the bell. And like you said, they played loose. They did not play like a team that was panicking because they were missing 3 guys. And that says a lot about it says a lot about the character and the leadership of that defense,
Sure.
even with guys out. It also says a lot about the character of that defense. And that starts at the top. And this is exactly what we talk about the offense, right? You feed off of who your leadership is.
Absolutely.
You're going to play like your leaders. And that's what we saw tonight is the leadership that this football team gets on that side of the ball has been strong and remains strong.
Right.
Even in the face of adversity. And again, you're bouncing back after playing the triple option last week. I mean, again, There's all the excuses in the world not to be on point.
I was actually expecting a bit of I wouldn't say not a good defensive performance, but I was expecting a little rust to have to get knocked off after playing the option last week, and there was none of it. Like I didn't see it. You know what I mean? As a unit, I didn't see it. I would have never guessed that they played a triple option offense last week, and that's a testament to the coaching, in my opinion. I'm all about blaming coaches when stuff goes wrong, and I'm all about giving coaches the benefit of the doubt when things go right.
Right.
And to me, that was coaching.
Right. And again, the answer. So like to me, when I look at this game, if I'm being honest, I don't look at it and say Notre Dame held the nation's #1 offense to 270 whatever yards, right? Because they didn't have Brennan Armstrong.
Right.
You faced a team that had an okay offensive line, really good skill players, and a true freshman quarterback. Okay. But the thing is, that's the lens with which we are evaluating this performance. We're not evaluating it as the team that scored 39 a game and 540 some yards.
Right.
But you did what you're supposed to do to that type of team with your offense basically just sputtering the entire second half. You did exactly what you're supposed to do. Yeah, you gave up some plays here and there, but when you had to make stops, you made stops.
Yeah.
You gave your offense the ball multiple times in the first half on, quick 3 and outs, quick drives. The one time they tried that really bizarre 4th down attempt and you stopped it, it was just kind of like, what are you doing? It's 4th and 12. Like, I didn't understand that call. Like, did James Franklin like hijack Bronco Mendenhall's headset or something? But they stepped up and answered the call, and that's what you need to do. When you're faced with adversity, you step up and you get it done. And they got it done.
They
and
absolutely
they
did.
played at a very high level. And again, it was good scheme.
Yes,
it was good coaching. It was good execution. It was playing with fire. It was when Virginia did start to roll because look, I don't care who you're playing. Any team that's got the athletes that Virginia has, they're going to complete some passes.
Of course.
They're going to make some plays. And what did Wicks have tonight? Like 2 catches the whole night?
2 catches for 32 yards.
And they were on back-to-back plays.
Yeah. And I remember saying to the guy sitting next to me, I was like, that's the guy they got to watch out for, man. He averages over 100 yards a game. Never saw the ball again. And never saw the ball again.
And because they had a good game plan for him.
Right.
And
I can't remember, to be honest with you, the last time Brian Kelly threw some props at the defensive staff, like in public. You know what I mean?
Did he
like
tonight?
He did. He's like,
Okay.
We had a plan defensively, and it was effective. And we had a plan for the Wildcat because we wanted to make sure we had every, possible scenario covered because we didn't know who was going to be the quarterback. And because of the plan that we had, they didn't even go back to it. He's like, the staff did a great job, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, wow. Like, okay. All right.
Great.
It's about time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this was an excellent defensive game plan, top to bottom, because they didn't know. It's a big difference if Brennan Armstrong plays. It's a big difference,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have to be ready for every scenario. That is not an easy task, and they did it. So, and speaking of Brennan Armstrong, I'm going to get to Kevin O'Neill's super chat because he asks about it. He says, "What's up, fellas?" He goes, "You think Brennan Armstrong is a pro prospect? Do you think UVA would have challenged had he played? You guys rock. Go Irish."
Well, I really appreciate those last 2 things.
Absolutely. Now, Kevin, thank you for the super chat. First of all, Kevin, really appreciate it. I will say this. Do I think Brennan Armstrong is a pro prospect? I would have really liked to watch this game and see him against Notre Dame's defense.
Because they haven't really played any good defense.
Right. To really make that assessment, to be perfectly honest with you. I've heard from other people that he can make every throw and he can do this and he can do that. I think he's a little undersized, but I don't think that matters as much these days.
He has another year left as well. That's the thing too. He doesn't have to come out this year.
And I think that's probably important, but it is a very weak quarterback class this year. So
it's turned out to be. It was supposed to be really good, but it's really turned out to be.
Yeah.
Although there was a kid in playing for that team in Boston that was freaking balling today. I don't know if you saw that, but let me speak to this because I think Brennan Armstrong is a good quarterback. I think he's smart. I think he's a good decision maker. I think he's got a good arm. He's a good athlete. I don't think he does anything great, and I don't think his ball placement's super awesome. Now, again, this is his second year as a starter. Last year was his first. He improved from year 1 to year 2. I'd like to see him come back. I think he's a pro prospect. Yes. I think the question that I have is to what degree? Is he a Sam Ehlinger type of pro prospect, or is he a Davis Mills type of prospect? Meaning, I don't see him as a first-round pick. Davis Mills wasn't. He was more of a third-round pick that eventually, that starting at Texas, and kind of a down-the-road guy, or is he more of a, like the kid that Pitt had a few years ago? I'm trying to remember that guy's name, Vince. The one that beat I always get his name wrong. He started some games in the NFL. I'm going to give me a second. Nathan Peterman.
Oh,
is he more of a backup kind of guy? I think that's what the next year is going to prove, Kevin. The numbers are great. He has great talent around him. He's the ultimate quarterback, and he can make a lot of plays with his legs too. And that's the thing I like about him. Is he a day 2 or day 1 pro prospect? Not right now, in my opinion, from what I've seen of him. But he's a guy that if he comes back next year, gets stronger, improves his ball placement and timing a little bit more, then we could maybe be having a different conversation. But he's going to need some time.
The second half of that question, would UVA have challenged had he played? UVA would have scored more points if he had played, but I also think Notre Dame would have scored more points because they wouldn't have quit. Quit's a mean word.
Yes.
They wouldn't have stopped playing offense.
They would have taken their foot off the gas is about as right.
Right.
I think the game would have been a little bit closer but I think it would have been a more impressive win.
Yes.
Because to your point, Vince, I think it would have looked a lot more like what we said in our predictions.
Correct. I completely agree with that. Yes.
52-27. What'd you have?
45-28.
Right.
So, yeah.
I think it would have looked more like that, but it would have been a more convincing win. They would have scored more against Notre Dame without it. I mean, look, if you'd have held them to 27 points, that's over 10 points below their season average.
Right.
That would have been a good performance on defense. I think they might have held them a little bit lower than that in regulation. But to your point, Vince, I think the offense would have looked different because I think Tommy Rees would have made some adjustments, come right out in the second half with the same "let's go get them" type of mentality. And maybe Brian Kelly says, "Hey, we're up 21-17. They get the ball first. We need to go put some points on the board here."
Right.
With a minute 17 left, a minute 16 left, and 2 timeouts. So you never know how the game's going to play out. And for all we know, Notre Dame might have won 52-10. I mean, they might have the defensive line might have been turned loose more. I mean, we don't know.
Right.
But I think it would have been there would have been more points from both teams. And again, that's 100% a guess. Because you really never know how a game would have been played if different people. Because it's not just about, well, you put Brennan Armstrong in there and they'd have scored at least 30. Notre Dame only scored 28. Because the entire makeup of the game would have been different.
Completely different. And Notre Dame's playing to win at that point. Because, look, say what you want to about Brian Kelly. He plays to win. I mean, and he would have continued to play to win.
Because they came out aggressively on offense in the first half.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And Vince, do you have anything else to say about the defense? Because I think now would be a good time to make that transition to start talking about the offense.
That is fine. We have one more super chat, and I can't remember what it was about. That's about an offensive player. So, yes, we can definitely move to offense.
Did you find it?
I did find it. It's from Craig Sebring. Thank you, Craig, for the super chat. He said, when I saw Diggs make that leap over the Virginia player, I said to my mom, the track and field coach should ask Coach Kelly if he can use him. There's plenty of people on this team that could make hay on the track team. There's no question about that.
So let's first talk about Tommy Rees and the offensive game plan.
Hold on. We do have a couple more. You want me to hit the super chats? You want to start talking
before we
offense?
move on to offense.
Yeah,
let's get to those.
Paul Hamilton said, forgot a question in the super chat, now in the comments. I assume that's from Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get rid of this real quick, though.
Oh, so I think this is what he's referring to.
Okay. It may very well might be.
Yeah, because Paul gave a super chat without anything attached to it.
Oh, gotcha.
I think that's what he's referring to. So he gave this earlier,
10-4,
but there was nothing connected to it. So I think he
makes sense.
So
he says, did you think the offense run by Notre Dame with Tyler Buckner at quarterback in the fourth is what the offense will look like next year with him under center? Also listen to you both every day during my cross-country road trip. That's right, because he's heading to San Diego. Paul. Okay. Remember, he was at our tailgate.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
And he just graduated from the Naval Academy.
That's right.
He's headed over to
he's a huge Tyler Buckner fan.
Huge Tyler Buckner fan.
So,
yes.
So that's
love
why
that, by the way.
That's why he's talking about asking about Tyler Buckner.
And we got at least one more here because we will write that one down too. We can talk about that one. But Raymond Titman, thank you for the super chat, Raymond. He says, which of these top 10 teams would you favor Notre Dame to beat? Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Oklahoma State.
I wouldn't favor Notre Dame to beat Oregon or Ohio State. I think they could if they play their game. I think I would favor Notre Dame to beat Michigan, and I would favor Notre Dame to beat Oklahoma State. But I think all four of them would be good games.
Yes, agreed.
If Notre Dame plays their game, that's the difference. That's the rub.
I agree with you.
Ohio State's the one I least would want to play there.
Yes, that is correct. And I agree with you on all of them, except Oregon. I might have to sit down and think about a little bit more. I haven't sat down and watched Oregon a whole lot because they're always on so friggin'
late. My thing is Kayvon Thibodeau would absolutely wreck the Notre Dame defensive end.
Okay, fair enough.
That's my problem. That's my concern. Yeah, that's my concern with it.
Okay,
that would be my issue.
And that is a well-founded concern.
Yeah.
So
I had a buddy a friend of mine was, he and I were kind of arguing this summer about he doesn't think Kayvon Thibodeau's that good, blah, blah, blah. And so how much have you actually watched him? He's like, well, I watched him as a freshman. And I'm like, okay, you watched him as a freshman. How about you watch? And so after like 2 games, he was like, hey man, I was completely wrong about that guy's a dude. He's really good. And he's a really good run defender too. He's not just a pass rusher. So I don't know if I would necessarily favor them to win. But I think they can play with all those teams. I don't think there's a team in the country Notre Dame can't play with if they play to their potential. And I think that leads us back to the conversation about this offense. I think the first half and at times in the second half, we saw why I have always been so excited about what this offense can be. And it wasn't perfect, but what we saw was spreading the ball around. Michael Mayer was getting involved. Kyron Williams getting involved. Logan Diggs was getting involved. Braden Lindsey was getting involved. Lorenzo Styles was getting involved. I mean, they were spreading the ball around so much. And it's like, think about how many different dudes tonight made plays, and it's, to me, it's like and then what we saw was an offensive game plan that was geared around what we talked about, keeping them off balance. In the first half, I saw 11 personnel. I saw 12 personnel. We saw 13 personnel. And you know what they did the first time that they were in 13 personnel? They called a play action post route. Now, it went incomplete, but like that accomplishes something when you talk about, hey, you want to come out here on 13 and go 9 and 10 in the box because we're going to throw it over your head, right? We saw them going 21 personnel in the red zone, which I loved. And on third down, they put Chris Tyree in the backfield. And one time they just lined Kyron Williams out in the slot in the red zone. That was a play to Michael Mayer. Another time they motioned him outside and ran him free, ran him on an undercut that he caught to convert a third down. Super creative stuff. We saw a reverse to Lorenzo Styles. First time they brought Tyler Buckner in the game, they ran a reverse. Because you think about it, if you're Tommy Rees, you look at it, they're going to be so locked in to exactly what you said last week, Vince. They're going to be geared to stop the zone read.
Right.
And so what do? You fake a zone read and you reverse it to Lorenzo Styles, who goes for 52 yards, get the holding, still goes for 37. Your offense is, kind of, you had a 3 and out, then you throw a pick on a play that Kevin Austin didn't play the ball correctly. And so what does he do? He goes right to a reverse to Braden Lindsey, 31 yards, sparked the offense. I thought when he was allowed to kind of go after it, I thought the game plan tonight that was the best game plan plus play calling that we've ever seen from Tommy Rees.
Completely agree. It was inventive. It was imaginative. It was using your personnel. It was just, I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh, reverses and end arounds and, the motions and, some of the different things that they were doing with motion, I thought was outstanding, to be honest with you. And so, the first half, man, I was on board with this offense, and it gave me shades of what this offense could be, with the personnel that they have, and all of that. And it was just, man, I tell you what, it was. I loved it, which is why I was so upset about the second half.
Right.
Which is that. I mean, seriously, that's why. That's absolutely why. So very frustrating. We got a couple more super chats. Don't
bring up Tommy. I saw that one. Look, I'm not going to waste time on trolls, right? That person's no longer in the chat. We're not going to waste time on that. So,
yep.
I didn't even see I saw one comment and it was childish and says, okay.
Yeah. We bash too much.
Yeah. I don't care.
But thank you, Tommy, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. And Anthony L is along those same lines. Yeah. And I appreciate the super chat, Anthony. But we're just going to let sleeping dogs lie on that one. So,
some people and some things are not worth your time or ours.
It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. So, but yes, that's why the second half was so disappointing for me. You know what I mean? Because we saw it. It'd be one thing if they just played that way the whole time. And it would just be like, okay, here we go again.
That's why I was so excited up until that last minute 16.
Yeah. Yep. I completely agree with that. I mean, and we saw good things from the freshmen that played, and we saw all kinds of great stuff. And so
pull up the box score from tonight's game, because I mean, the thing that I just kept really being impressed by was the manner in which they spread the ball around tonight. And that was the thing that I just, there was no, I felt like they were trying to get Michael Mayer involved, which one of my keys to the game tonight was feed the beast. And it was about Michael Mayer.
That catch that he made was
he made multiple. I mean, his route running on the intermediate, like the Y options and the things like that, where he was getting open. I thought were really impressive. I liked seeing that. I thought he was really sharp. His blocking was not good.
Yeah.
But his success in the pass game, he was really effective. But that was kind of one of my keys to the game. But you always run the risk of, when you do something like that, where you're game planning to get a guy like Michael Mayer involved, is sometimes you can then go too far where you're overly focused on him and you lose rhythm.
Right.
And I thought tonight, Tommy Rees did a great job of that. And here's my offensive keys to the game. Start fast. I mean, okay, the first drive stunk, but after that, they scored in their next 3 possessions. Mix up your pass game looks. We saw that tonight, Vince. We saw vertical stretch. We saw horizontal stretch. We saw RPOs. I thought Jack Cohn in the pocket tonight was really poised. And we're going to hammer the offensive line when we start talking about the run game, but their pass blocking tonight was exceptional. Jack Cohn had a comfortable pocket all night long. There was one time that they ran a double inside twist and got to the quarterback. But if you go back and look at that play, they brought 6. Notre Dame free release to the running back, which meant Notre Dame only had 5 blockers. One of those guys is on the quarterback. He's got to see that and hit Lorenzo style on the crossing route behind. That's the only time I really remember them getting a legitimate pressure on him tonight, or in the game tonight. So I thought the pass pro was really good. I thought they gave him plenty of time to throw. And I thought he was patient in the pocket. And even on like the throw he made to Michael Mayer, that was just like a little simple crossing route. Mayer caught it. It was not the one early, but not the one later, but earlier in the game. Mayer catches, he's able to turn up and gain 14 yards.
Right.
Well, if he goes to that too quickly, then the defense doesn't have the depth. They close and rally to him quickly. Even the first play of the game, I think it was first or second play of the game, where he drops back, he reads, nothing comes open. He throws late to Kyron Williams on a check down. Kyron's able to go get yards. If you go to that check down too quickly, they rally and they don't have the depth and they can make a play on you. So I really liked how the ball was spread around, and it was kind of like they were looking to attack certain things that Virginia was doing. My third key was be aggressive. I thought they were aggressive. As I said, early in the game, they line up 13 personnel and they take a shot. They're running reverses. They're doing all types of, RPOs, screens, taking shots. I can't complain with that. And then my fourth key was feed the beast. Now talking about Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
And they did that. And my last one was red zone touchdowns. And until that fumble, when they were already up 28-3, when they got in the red zone tonight, they got touchdowns. So I really felt like in a lot of ways, they did everything I wanted them to do in the first half. And I think that was where my frustration came from is,
right.
I just can't believe that Tommy Rees is the reason that they did that. I can't believe that. I can't accept the fact that a guy that was doing all that stuff is, made the decision to say, hey, let's just go 12 personnel they were in 12 personnel almost the entire second half until they put Tyler Buckner in the game. And those were some of the things like that I just was frustrated by, is because if they would have just kept that up just through the third quarter, maybe it's 35-3 going in the fourth quarter, and then you can kind of, get your work for Buckner.
Like I said, one more touchdown, and I have a different feeling about this game.
Yeah.
I'm still going to bang them for taking their foot off the gas and for some of the things that they did. But 28's not enough. 28's not enough against this defense.
Yeah.
That's just all there is to it. I watched too much of this Virginia defense this week to think that 28 was appropriate for Notre Dame to score against this defense. But again, one more touchdown. If they don't fumble it on the 12-yard line or whatever on that exchange and they put it in the end zone, I feel a heck of a lot better about this game.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
The frustrating part is we've seen it. We've seen what this offense can be. We've seen, I think we've seen Tommy Rees at his most creative, at his most, I'm going to get certain guys involved and I know how to get them involved. He's proving that he knows the strengths of his team and how to get them involved and get them to be, positive people on this offense, right?
Which makes me kind of like really cautiously optimistic that if they were playing a better team and they couldn't take their foot off the gas, tonight was this is what we wanted to see.
Right.
This is what we wanted to see. Reverses, jet sweeps, play action shots, running the football, RPOs,
Yep.
I mean, we saw it all tonight, and it looked great. And when they needed to dial up in the second half, they were able to do it. So that's also kind of why I was like, Tommy Rees deserved more than 28 points tonight, is kind of how I look at it, right? Like, that's kind of how I feel about it. You know, and look, there were some mistakes, right? There were some mistakes on offense. Jack Cohn had there was the third down throw on the first drive. He throws the out cut to Lorenzo Styles. It's a little underthrown. Lorenzo has to kind of wait for it, and that's what caused him to fall down, which prevented him from getting the first down. They go for a fourth down, and they didn't get it. Right, and he had a couple plays like that, but also I thought he made good reads, got the ball out, all that kind of stuff.
Exceptionally efficient. So, I mean,
yeah. And the running backs are good. No one can. To me, I'm not trading this backfield for anybody.
No.
With all due respect to Georgia and Bama and everybody else, I have never seen a running back group ever, especially at Notre Dame, that makes more yards out of nothing than this group.
You are not kidding.
I mean,
you're not kidding.
It is. I mean, Lance Taylor deserves a huge raise because, look, Kyron's a great player and he's playing great football, but it doesn't matter who they put in the game. They're all doing it. And part of that is coaching, because you got to make sure that you get them where they need to be. So I thought the running backs played great. Their patience. I mean, like we talked about, the 26-yard gain, and this was my frustration with the game, Vince, was the blocking by the offensive line was really frustrating in the run game, because there's just no movement against a Virginia defense that was giving up over 210 yards rushing per game coming in. No push. And you look at the 26-yard gain from Kyron Williams. He's running left. Kane Madden gets destroyed off the ball. His guy hits Logan. He's got to make that guy miss. Bounces out. Then he's got to stiff arm a dude in the backfield on third down.
Right.
And then he gets free and then hurdles a dude. That's not on the offensive line. Although the left side of the line did a good job of staying on a guy, but there just wasn't the movement. It was keep a body on a body. But that's also kind of why we said at the beginning, early on, they were not keeping a body on a body. They were getting beat up the field. Right. As I'm looking at my notes, I'm like, 76 beat up the field, 87 beat inside. I had a lot of those notes. No push, 62 got beat inside. I have 76, 87 beat inside on a 6-yard gain on third down. 3rd and 2, first drive of the game, Kyron goes for 6 yards because he made 2 guys miss and then ran for 6 yards. Those 2 kids, and then Chris Tyree, I thought ran the ball hard tonight. I thought he played well.
I agree. That was good to see. That was good to see him get back in, run between the tackles.
I loved their 21 personnel package tonight.
Yeah.
Did you notice that during the game, like in the red zone and on third down, how they went to that?
Yeah, because Kyron, they split Kyron out at times, and then they had Tyree in the backfield.
Right. So that's what I loved about the red zone offense. You talk about scheming better. There were two things they did in the red zone that I thought were excellent. Number one was the touchdown pass to Michael Mayer. And they may say, okay, it shouldn't take a rocket scientist to want to throw the ball to Michael Mayer, but here's what made it challenging. On that play, they went 21 personnel. As a reminder, that's 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers. 2 backs is the 2, 1 tight end is the 1, 21 personnel. And they had Mayer in the slot to the right and Kyron in the slot to the left. At that point in time, it's like, pick your poison.
Right.
Oh, and we got Kevin Austin outside. Pick your poison.
Right.
And so they had an ISO with Michael Mayer, and you're not covering. No one on Virginia's team can cover Michael Mayer in an ISO. Just can't. And so he picked the right side. It's a touchdown. Great play call. And to me, it's like, and then the other one was the Braden Lindsey touchdown. So instead of bringing Braden across, and then, so they were in 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. They motioned Braden across. He was originally on the side of the 2 tight ends. They motioned him across to the side of the receiver. And instead of having him run a crossing route on a bootleg, which, you could have boot and then go around and he crosses behind the line, that allows him to be a little bit more noticeable. They brought him on an under. And under, how I define it, is when you go behind the line. Well, when he went behind the line, Virginia lost him. They didn't know where he was. The defensive end who was pass rushing banged him, but he wasn't purposely banging him. So then when Kyron got free from that, Jack showed great patience. But once Kyron got free in the flat, Braden got free in the flat, they had no concept that he was running a route.
No.
That was great play design.
Yes.
Great play design.
Yep.
And then great execution. And then you saw Braden playing hungry. And this is what we've talked about before, that he was not doing early in the year. Remember, there was a couple times he played deep balls and he just didn't really make a great effort and no PI. Tonight, he was on that deep ball that Tyler Buckner threw to him. He really made a good effort to try to get to that ball. Look what happens. PI. Right? And he made some tough sideline catches on third down. I thought we could go dude by dude and say, boy, but these guys really played well. Tonight we saw an example of when this offense is humming the way it needs to, they have just so many weapons. It's like, who do you defend? Who do you take out of the game? You got Mayer, you got Kyron, you got Diggs, you got Tyree, you got Lorenzo Styles, you got Kevin Austin, you got Braden Lindsey. When they're all rolling like they were tonight, they were all rolling.
Right.
How do you defend that?
Embarrassment of riches is what.
How do you defend that?
Yeah. Yep. I completely agree with that. What I will say is on that play that you were talking about with Braden Lindsey, how he kind of came back and he really fought for that 50-50 ball. I love that play by Tyler Buckner. And I wish he would have gotten it out in front a little bit more because I think it's a touchdown. But I love the fact he took that shot because we've seen him run that play last week, that exact same play. And he dumped it off to Michael Mayer both times, I believe, last week. And this time he took a shot. And I love that. The kid's getting more confident. And I dig that. And I love that play design too, by the way, because it's a read zone first.
It's actually a triple option, correct?
Yes, that's exactly correct. It's a read zone first, give or keep. And then as you're rolling out, he could keep it and run, or he could throw it to Michael Mayer, or he has to go through his checks. And he went through his reads and he saw that Braden Lindsey had a step and he took the shot, man. And on the run, that's a tough throw to make. Again, I would have loved to get it out a little bit more, but he gave his guy an opportunity. I love that throw. I love that throw. And I love that Braden Lindsey went up and tried to challenge for it. So, and I will say conversely, on the interception, I would have loved to see Austin put his hand in the air, try to, and I know it was overthrown. I get it. I totally get it. But I wish he would have just put his hand in the air, maybe try to play a little bit of defense on that.
Which play was that?
The interception for the Jack Cohn threw.
Yeah, so what happened was on that play, Vince, so he was running a deep, looked like a corner route. When Jack starts to throw, it looks like Kevin's going to go over top. Well, then once Jack kind of started to let it loose, Kevin got jammed and decided to go under.
Right.
Once you do that, quarterback
I know he wasn't going to catch it. I just wanted
quarterback can't. No, I'm
something.
just explaining why the throw was deep anyway, because he didn't play that correctly. You can't audible yourself like that. Yeah. Because the quarterback is going where he thinks you're going to go and where you initially go.
Yes, absolutely.
You take that thing over top, and if he takes that thing over top, then he's got a much better place on that ball. He got hit, and then all of a sudden, he's, getting picked.
Right.
So, that's my
point. I don't necessarily blame Cohn. I just wanted to see Austin fight for that ball a little bit more. That's all.
I'm not saying you said anything. Yeah. I'm explaining the play.
Yeah, no, that was my negative take on Austin. Other than that, I thought he played a great game as well. So, I thought that touchdown catch was Cohn couldn't have placed the ball in his hands any better than he did, and it was a great catch as well. So, good stuff. Very good stuff. I think we had a super chat, if I remember correctly. Yes, we certainly did. And this is a crazy name. Paul Owings.
Just go Paul Owings.
I don't know what's happening at the end there. But thank you, Paul, for the super chat. Does Kelly have anything to do with play calling or just telling Reese be more aggressive or be more passive?
It's the latter, and it's not quite the passive part. It's the latter. Hey, let's control the clock.
Right.
Let's go 12 personnel. Let's be a little bit, let's not take any chances. Kind of more of that kind of thing. And then, of course, he's the one that decides to run the ball. Like Brian Kelly doesn't say, hey, Tommy, let's go for a score here at the end of the first half. And then Tommy runs the ball 3 straight times.
Right.
That's not Tommy Rees's decision. That's a Brian Kelly decision. And that's how it always should be. I mean, the head coach should always make the decisions there. That's one of the many reasons the head coach is there for. Hey, coach, are we in 2-down territory here?
Right.
And that was a weird sequence of events too on the first touchdown, because they ran a draw on 3rd and 6, which is perfect 2-down territory. 4-down territory, meaning that 2 downs means on 3rd down, do you have 2 downs to get the first down? They run a draw, get 5 yards, go from 3rd and 6 to 4th and 1, and they send the field goal team onto the field. Which I was like, what? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Then they called timeout, which was annoyed by because the play clock was running down.
And like, then how are you calling a timeout on a field goal?
Right.
Like, what have you done wrong here?
Then he makes the decision to put the offense back out, which I loved.
Yeah.
I was very happy about that.
Me too.
And then you go out and you convert it, and you go 13 personnel, and Kyron runs for 14 yards. And that was one of the best blocked runs of the game. They didn't get great movement, but everybody just got a body and they kept moving their feet. And there was nobody from Virginia that could get off the blocks to get to the ball. And that was one of the best executed plays of the game at a time when it was 0-0. So it was a very important play. And then, of course, the next play is when they went to the 21 personnel and then hit the outcut to Mayer for the touchdown. So to me, that was a strange sequence of events that I was glad that he made the decision to go for it after the 4th down. And he didn't decide to say, I don't know, line up for a field goal and throw a swing pass out to the kicker. And if you didn't watch the Penn State-Michigan game, then you may not know what I'm talking about. But that's what Penn State did today.
It's a terrible throw, too. I mean, he
left
that
poor from a knee.
That poor, skinny little kicker, he left him hanging out to dry. And it was poor play design because they had nobody out front blocking for him. They just assumed
you're asking your kicker to outrun Michigan's defense of the end zone.
Right. They just assumed that Michigan was going to bring all their guys to block the kick and not help him out at all. And he had to run like 15 yards.
I never thought, Vince, that I would see a worse special teams play call than what your boy Kirby Smart did against Alabama in the SEC title game a few years ago. And your boy James Franklin proved me wrong tonight.
But they're all my boys.
They're all your boy. I claim none of them.
They're all my boys.
None of them.
That was the worst fake field goal I've ever seen. Worst fake field goal I've ever seen.
Yep. So that's the thing. Is so like you look at it and you say, boy, there's some really good things to like. And then you look at it and you're like 28 points and however it was. And that's the thing that frustrates me so much, Vince, because when you look at the actual, like how the game played out and you look at like the first half stats, Notre Dame was on pace for like 500 some yards and 42 points, and then you come out in the second half and it is what it is. And again, it was a completely different game plan. The philosophy, it was like all 12 personnel and you come out and you throw a pick out, you go 12 personnel and throw a pick, and then you come out in the next drive and you go 12 personnel and you go 3 and out. And it's just like, ugh,
Right.
And
exactly right.
Then they come out the next drive. They're not in 12 personnel. They were in reverse. They do all that and touchdown. And then they went back to, it was maddening.
Super frustrating. We got a couple super chats I want to grab here. Brian TJ 0311.
We do need to answer Paul's question too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. The one earlier about Tyler Buckner and the offense and all that.
Yeah, and there's the Tyler Buckner part of this next super chat, so it works out great. TJ says, to IB Nation, from IB Nation, love you all. Thank you, B, V, and all who support. That's a great shout out, TJ. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm sure all of IB Nation appreciates that as well. Mark E. Stewart, thank you for the super chat, sir. Says, I think Tyler Buckner is a dynamic player, the type we haven't seen at quarterback in a while. I'm happy he's gotten a lot of playing time this year. I look forward to a really good offense next year. That's not where I saw Mark going with that particular comment. I thought he was going to be he should be starting. But I agree with you, Mark. I think it's fantastic that he's gotten the playing time that he's gotten. It's the package that we've been calling for since summertime, and it's been great. It's been fantastic, and he has grown. I just talked about the play about him throwing deep on that basically triple option play. I think he's grown within his package, and I think he's doing a great job. So I am with you, Mark. I'm excited to see what they can do with Tyler Buckner if he wins the job next year.
Agree, and I expect him to.
I do
And
too.
to answer Paul's question is what we saw on that last drive. Is that what we can expect from Tyler Buckner in the
That's
future?
right. That's right.
And I think it'll be a part of what the offense is going to look like. It won't be that's what it looks like. And basically what Notre Dame is doing now is they're building a foundation. They're laying the foundation from which they're going to build the offense that Tyler Buckner's going to run.
Right.
And so it's going to be the reads, it's going to be RPOs, it's going to be read zones, power reads, things where he's going to get designed runs, not a ton of them. I don't think he's going to do as many designed runs in the future as they're doing with him now. Just because, you start doing that 15 times a game
Right.
and he's your starting quarterback and he's got to throw 30 times, it gets a little bit challenging. And so to me, I look at it and I say, you're going to see some of those wrinkles, but they're going to eventually get to the point where Tyler has the opportunity to be also a pocket passer. And that's the thing that they like about him, that they want to eventually get him to, is the point where he can be that guy that it can also sit back and pick you apart throwing the ball down the field.
Right.
He's not quite there yet.
Correct.
He's shown flashes of it. I mean, we saw it against Virginia Tech. He made 3 great throws from the pocket against Virginia Tech. He had the deep ball to Kevin Austin. He threw that backside seam route to Avery Davis. We've seen him in a really nice deep crossing route at one point in time this year. He's shown flashes of it, but he's just not there yet to be able to go out and do it all the time like Jack Cohn can. And we saw that against Virginia Tech when Virginia Tech was able to kind of adjust and then go after him. You could say, okay, well, he's not ready yet. Eventually he'll get there. And once he gets there as a passer, it's going to make his running even more impactful. And somebody asked me, would I compare him to Sam Howell? Yeah, except him and Sam Howell are on the complete reverse ends of their development. Whereas Sam was just a passer early that eventually became a runner. Tyler's going to start off as a runner that eventually becomes a dynamic passer. And so, yeah, he's a guy that can beat you with his arm and his legs, that eventually will be able to, if you take away his running, he can still be dynamic, meaning the designed runs.
Right.
And that's what they're looking for.
Fair enough. Didn't we have some other questions we were going to come back to?
You were supposed to ask me something about BK.
I was.
Yes. You didn't say what it was, though.
Well, are we finished with the offense overall? Because this was this is more of like a big picture type question.
I think so.
Okay, cool.
I think so.
So I was asked today during one of my radio shows by the other host, as we were killing time waiting for a guest to show up. There's been talk of Brian Kelly and actually one of the reporters on the beat, who shall remain nameless at the present, said that, if Notre Dame goes 11-1, the first story that he's going to write is that this is the best coaching job that Brian Kelly has ever done, et cetera, et cetera. And they started talking about him as a front runner for coach of the year. So my co-host asked me if I think BK should be considered for coach of the year. I want the opinion of Brian Driscoll, because I will give you my unfiltered opinion, and the same opinion that I gave earlier today. And I still feel that way, but go ahead.
I want to hear your thoughts first.
Okay. Fair enough.
Because I think my stance on this.
I think I do, and I think that I have listened to you a lot, and that probably has a lot to do with my opinion as well. But my opinion is that Notre Dame is 11-1. That's great. Somebody had mentioned that Brian Kelly has done a great job Swiss Army knifing or whatever this team this year, right? Plugging holes and blah 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 blah. And I think that's ridiculous. Number one, because you
didn't know that Notre Dame's the only team in the country that lost players last year.
They preach the next man in thing all the time. They talk about it. They literally talk about next man in all the time. So that's expected. That's what you're supposed to do as a coach. You're supposed to coach the depth, and that's what they've done. Okay. I would say overall, I would not vote for Brian Kelly as coach of the year, because the one game that they lost, they were completely unprepared for. They came out flat, and it was the worst game that they played. And I put that on the coaching staff. And that's me. That's coming from a former coach. I don't think that team was prepared for that game. And if you're not prepared for a game, you can't be coach of the year. And that's my opinion on that. So I would say that top 10, sure, we'll have that conversation. That's fine. But he's not my front runner for coach of the year by any stretch of the imagination.
It blows my mind how these narratives get started and how like everybody grabs onto them. And we said it this summer that the thought of Notre Dame winning 7-8 games was just stupid. And it was still living in the Notre Dame of the beginning of the Brian Kelly era, when you could accept more losses. But again, why is that acceptable this year? Do we not remember what Brian Kelly lost after 2011 when they went 8-5 and he lost Michael Floyd and he lost Harrison Smith, Robert Blanton, Darius Fleming, all those NFL players, and the next year they went 12-0? Do we not remember the fact that Notre Dame lost Mike McGlinchey and Quentin Nelson and Equanimity St. Brown and Josh Adams, and then Alex Bars gets hurt in Game 5, and the next year they went from 10-3 to 12-1? Do we not remember that? And this notion that Notre Dame lost so much is absurd. Yes, they lost a lot, and you've had 12 years to build your program to where you can be just like Ohio State and just like Alabama and just like all these other teams where you don't have those drop-offs. And that's part of it, but here's the other part. Here's the question that I want to ask people that say that, okay? What team on this schedule, with all the personnel losses that Notre Dame had, I'm going to ignore the fact that Georgia returned the same number of starters as Notre Dame, played the first game of the year, and have yet to have George Pickens, their best receiver, has yet to play a game this year. Okay. They had Eric Gilbert transfer in. He left before the season started. Darnell Washington's never been hurt. JT Daniels got hurt. They're playing with Stetson Bennett all year. They're not making excuses for all the guys they lost.
Yeah.
Why is Notre Dame? Well, Kirby Smart's been there 5 freaking years. Brian Kelly's been there 12. So why does that apply? You said, well, man, Notre Dame lost 9 guys in the NFL. Alabama lost 6 freaking dudes in the first round of the draft. And if Landon Dickerson doesn't blow his knee up in the SEC title game, he goes in the first round. He went 38th, I believe. So this notion that Notre Dame can lose all those people, and who are they supposed to have lost to this year? That's my question. The problem is so many people make preconceived ideas in the offseason, and there's a lot of people around that don't know football, and they just glob on to what the narrative is, like about how good North Carolina was going to be. Raise your hand if you said that was garbage and North Carolina was overrated. Okay? Raise your hand if you said Wisconsin is not as good as people make them out to be. Right? Raise your hand if you said USC is probably going to be better, but they're not a top 15 team like people are making them out to be. Right? Raise your hand if you watch Notre Dame lose to Cincinnati and say, that ain't a real good football team. Notre Dame played like crap. Right? And that's been proven true. Notre Dame has beaten a 4-6 Florida State team, a 5-5 Toledo team by 3, a 6-4 Purdue team, a 7-3 Wisconsin team, a 5-5 Virginia Tech team. What is USC's record? Are they 4-5? Right? You beat a 4-5 USC team who has already fired their coach. You beat a 5-5 North Carolina team. You beat what is Navy? 2 and what? Navy is 2 and where is Navy? 2-7. And you beat a 6-4 Virginia team. Who were they supposed to have lost to because of everybody that they lost?
Right.
Notre Dame lost. Name me the team on Notre Dame's schedule that has better players than Notre Dame. Which one of those 6-4, 4-6, 5-5 football teams is Notre Dame supposed to have lost to? But if you're unwilling to accept the fact that you were wrong in your initial assessment of Notre Dame and their opponents, then you continue to convince yourself that they've done a masterful coaching job.
Exactly.
Has Brian Kelly done a bad coaching job this year? No.
not
Has
at
Brian
all.
Kelly done a great coaching job this year? No. And to talk about him being in the coach of the year conversation, are you serious?
Yeah, he's in the coach of the year conversation, and I'm summing up basically what you just said. he's in the coach of the year conversation because everybody thought that Notre Dame was going to be bad, and they thought that this schedule is so good. That's it right there. Because they're backing up their own preseason ideas of what this year was going to look like. And in order to make it sound like they knew what they were talking about, then Brian Kelly has to be coach of the year. He's coached his butt off to get these guys where they're at right now. Holy cow, they're an 11-win team.
You know the record. You know the record of the 9 teams that Notre Dame has beat this year. Do you know what their combined record? No, it's 500. It's 44 and 44.
There you go. There you go.
No, again,
and it's only going to get worse the next 2 games.
Here's the margin of victory for some of those games: 3, 14, 28 in a game you were losing in the fourth quarter. 3, 10. 16, now they're starting to kind of pull away from some teams now, which is great. But it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy when you convince yourself of something and you're unwilling to allow the data to convince you of something different.
Right.
And that's the problem. It's you're not willing to look at those things and say, hey, you're not playing your potential. Now, if Notre Dame was 9-1 against the schedule they had in 2017, I'd say, hey, that's really impressive, right? Or even 2018 when they had to play 3 ranked teams. I mean, they beat a good Michigan team, they beat a good Syracuse team, they beat a good Northwestern team. I'd say, hey, that's really impressive. You've played one good team this year, and they spanked you. I mean, Georgia's sitting there undefeated, and they've played how many ranked teams? Like 4? Right. It blows my mind that people are saying that, and I don't know why they're saying it. I don't want to even pretend to know why. I don't really care. It's an absurd notion, and the thing that bothers me is like, because those absurd things happen, then we have to push back on it, which makes us look negative. When in reality, we shouldn't be having this conversation. Brian Kelly's done a good job this year. He's done a good job this year. He has not gotten the most out of this football team.
It's not trophy good.
He has not gotten the most out of this football team.
I agree.
And you can say, well, look, but they lost Maris Luafau. Georgia lost George Pickens. Way bigger loss than losing Maris Luafau.
They also lost their starting quarterback, who is light years better than the quarterback they have in there right now.
Although they've decided to kind of just ride this one out. They just had their best defensive player was arrested for rape, didn't play in this game, and they still shut down Tennessee. Right? It's one of those things that's frustrating, Vince, because Ohio State, right? Ohio State's 9-1. They finally played a good team, and they slaughtered Purdue today.
Yeah, it was ugly.
Slaughtered Purdue.
They scored the most points in the first half against a Big Ten opponent for the first in the last 15 years.
And they're starting a redshirt freshman quarterback who came into the season with a grand total of 0 career passes. Now, that kid can replace Justin Fields, who was picked, 10th overall? But Jack Cohn, who came into the season with 10 wins as a starter, took a team to a Rose Bowl. You don't know how to build your offense around him.
Right.
It's like, oh, well, they had to figure out how to. Hey,
Brian Kelly himself.
We told you this summer how you needed to build your offense. And everything and people say, oh, you think you're. No, I'll tell you what I know, though, okay? I'm not stubborn because I think sometimes it's good to have an outside opinion because you get set in your ways and you need somebody from the outside to be able to tell you, hey, maybe you should look at it this way, challenge that line of thinking. And that's something that I've been told Marcus Freeman demands from his defensive coaches. Think outside the box, bring me new ideas. Brian Kelly doesn't necessarily do that on offense. And everything that we told you that they should be doing on offense this year, it took them 6, 7, 8, 9 games to figure out.
And Brian Kelly himself said, I wish I was smarter and I could have figured it out earlier.
He was kind of being
I understand
smart
that,
ass, but I wish he was too. Yes.
But at the same time, he's still admitting that they weren't doing what was best for this offense the first half of the season, right? I mean, no matter how he said it, that's not coach of the year talk.
Right.
Okay. I'm sorry. Waiting half the year to figure it out is not coach of the year.
Right.
Period.
Right.
We've got some super chats, Brian, that I want to grab here real quick. It kind of obviously goes along with what we're talking about. TJ, thank you, TJ, says BK will not have a statue, which means he will not win a national championship. And I believe Ashley Hill, thank you, Ashley, agrees, says preach, which I think is hilarious. And then TJ, amen, which is even better.
We had a lot of these when we were doing that, Vince. Then there was another one down here, which I thought was awesome. Here we go. Octavio. Who else is raising their hands right now? I love it.
That's
I
great.
love it.
A little class participation.
I love it.
It's fantastic. I love it too. Oh, here we go. Paul and earlier Paul said, I don't know what. Oh, he changed it. Paul Owings, Fort Worth Irish fan.
Much better.
Thank you, Paul. He says they had a chance to look like a team who's so much better than when they lost to Cincy, but 28 points. Look at what Ohio State did today. Absolutely. Completely agree with you, man. Completely agree with you, Paul. And thank you again for the super chat, man. Really appreciate that. I think I am all caught up. Yes, I'm caught up.
So anyway, I just we shouldn't be having this conversation right now. I shouldn't have gone on that anti-Brian Kelly conversation right there because it shouldn't be a topic of conversation.
Right.
We shouldn't be talking about this as a legitimate thing. You know, if you want to talk about coach of the year because of all you lost, then why don't we give it to Nick Saban? Because he lost 6. He had 7 players drafted before Notre Dame's first guy got drafted. Think about that. Had 7 players get picked. Now, Alabama's ranked what? And Notre Dame's ranked what? Right? And Alabama has actually beaten a couple good teams this year. So I'm tired of that narrative about this. And we could get into even deeper about, look, the same people that are talking about the great job he did because all they lost are the same people that were talking about how huge the pickup of Kane Madden was.
Yeah, it's a fact.
And now they want to be like, well, they had to replace him with this kid from Marshall. And it's like, well, the guy that you guys were hyping up as this great pickup this summer, right? I mean, look, Wake Forest returned fewer career starts on their offensive line than Notre Dame. Wake Forest did.
And they're doing okay.
Yeah, and that they can score. Okay.
They won a shootout today, but they can score points. So, again, it was against NC State, but whatever. Probably wouldn't have rushed the field. Probably wouldn't have rushed the field, Wake Forest, but, whatever. Pretend like you've been there.
Right. And Tara Trixie has a comment. If Coach of the Year was given to actual best coach, Saban would win almost every year. Agree. Yeah, but it's not supposed to go to the best coach. It's kind of the guy who had like did the best job. And sometimes it can go to someone who goes 10-2 or 9-3 because you're getting the most out of your players. What's more impressive to you? Dave Clawson's 9-1 with the talent he has, or Brian Kelly's 9-1 with the talent he has?
It's a no-brainer.
Because let's not forget, there was a dude that played for Wake Forest last year that people are talking about should be in New York City for the Heisman this year. He's playing in Michigan State now, right?
Right.
But I just it's a real frustrating narrative that we shouldn't even be having to discuss, to be honest with you, because I don't necessarily want to go on this Brian Kelly rant.
I know,
but it's this narrative starts getting thought of, and I don't know where the heck it comes from. I have no clue where it comes from. So Notre Dame had 9 guys get picked last year. Georgia also had 9. Georgia had 5 guys drafted in the first. No, I'm sorry. Georgia had 6 guys get drafted in the first 3 rounds last year. 6. And yet they're fine. Right. So I don't understand why it's such this huge detriment for Notre Dame when they lose players. It hasn't hurt Mike Elston. Right? I mean, Mike Elston continues to produce great DNs no matter who he loses. But yet the offensive coaches can't lose players and still be good?
Yeah. Yep. So I knew kind of where you were going to go, but I just thought it was very interesting that that's the conversation that's being had at some other places, and that it has bled into, stuff that I'm doing during the day. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's have this conversation. Let's go.
Right.
Right.
But about tonight, here's let's wrap it up. Right.
Let's do that.
And I think that we're at the point now where we've said all we need to say about the win. Tonight was a good win for Notre Dame. It's a good win for Notre Dame. You go on the road, you beat a Power 5 team 28-3. It's a good win. It's a good win. What people need to understand about our criticism of the win tonight is we're not looking for whether or not it's a good win or not. We're holding it to the standard of, is this the kind of win that you can go out and say you're building your resume to get to the conference, to the national championship, right? So that's the point. right? And to me, that's where the criticism comes from. You had an opportunity tonight to do something to really impress the committee, and you chose not to do it. And it's not because you were missing players. It's not because guys were out, because the side of the ball where you were missing all your players held their opponent to 3 points.
Right, exactly.
And those 3 points came in the fourth quarter, right? When the game was over. The side of the ball that wasn't really missing anybody, they're missing Avery Davis, but the guy that replaced Avery Davis played pretty freaking good, right? And so that's the thing is, it's the standard we're looking at and we're evaluating this program is what are they doing to get to the national championship? And the performance tonight was not, it was a missed opportunity in regards to impressing the committee to be able to jump up the rankings. Right now, yes, they're going to pass Oklahoma. Right now, I'm more concerned. I'm actually looking over my shoulder at Oklahoma State than I am looking forward at Michigan and Michigan State after tonight. Now Michigan State and Michigan are going to kind of take care of themselves because I don't think either one of them are going to beat Ohio State, right? But again, this was your chance to now say, okay, that day against Cincinnati, that was just what you and I know to be true. It was one bad day. Notre Dame is a better team than Cincinnati. That day they weren't. But if we're looking at it for the entirety, they're a better team than Cincinnati. But they've got to prove it on nights like tonight. They can't just win. They have to dominate.
Yep.
They have to destroy people. When you have a chance to beat a team by 40, you take it. And that's the missed opportunity. But if we're going to take that context out, this was a good win tonight. There's a lot of adversity these players faced.
Agreed.
Guys played sick. Some guys couldn't play. So guys that were sick had to – you mentioned Nana was sick too. Kelly said Nana was sick. He had to replace Myron, who was out.
Right.
The Adamiolas, I think, were two of those guys. You said Ramon Henderson. So two guys that were battling the flu, one guy playing a position he's never played before, goes out and plays great. You got to – I mean, and Ramon's a guy that we have hammered all year.
Right.
I mean, just crushed all year to the point where when I saw him back there, Vince, I'm telling you, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I was pissed. And the kid played great. I loved it. So I'm excited about that part of it. I'm happy for the kids. I think the kids battled their butts off tonight. I think they went out and earned a good win. My frustration remains with the missed opportunity that to me comes from the top.
Right.
And that's the two different ways that you look at it. And somebody asked about, do they know it was the flu and not COVID? Yes.
Yes, they had tests for both.
Yes.
And
yes.
Absolutely. And he was very specific on that.
Definitely the flu. And knowing Brian Kelly, there's no way he hear me on this. What I know of Brian Kelly, if it was COVID, he would have things would look a lot different tonight. That's like it wouldn't have been, let's call it the flu, let's brush it under the rug, let's play some guys. He would have dealt with it differently. Whether you agree or disagree with that, it's irrelevant.
Right.
Brian Kelly would not have done that, in my opinion. I don't believe. The way that he dealt with COVID last year, the way that he's still dealing with it now and his opinions on it, things like that, if it was COVID, there would have been a lot more guys out tonight.
Yes, agreed.
In my opinion. Absolutely. So, yeah, pretty confident that it was the flu.
We have one super chat that we'll throw up here before we leave. We've got crying eyes from Caleb Collins.
I get it.
On Sunny Styles.
That's a hurt. That one hurts.
We all get it. And I were you anticipating him committing now?
I had said in a show recently that I thought he was going to commit sooner rather than later. I didn't think it was going to be this soon. I thought it might be like December, January. And from what I read today, he committed, like he knew where he was going after the Penn State-Ohio State game like a couple weeks ago. So that was a challenge. And by the way, there's a discussion about who was or 4 or 5. Kyle Hamilton was not a composite 5-star player. Kyle Hamilton was only a 5-star player according to Irish Breakdown. Well, actually, at the time I was still at Rivals, but me and 247 Sports. 247 Sports had him as a 5-star on their rankings, their personal rankings. But on the composite, he was not a 5-star. because ESPN, I don't had him like Rivals had him. Let me look this up real quick, Vince. Rivals had him, I think, in the 60s. ESPN had him even lower than that. So he was not a composite 5-star recruit. And let me pull up the ESPN one. I think the only one that had him as a 5-star was 247. So yes, Rivals had Kyle Hamilton as the number 75 player in the country. And ESPN, you're going to love this.
Probably even better, I would imagine.
ESPN had Kyle Hamilton as the number 165th best player in the country.
Spot on.
Yep. This is also the joke. You guys want to, people ask like, why do I hate ESPN? It's stuff like that. Do you remember where Quentin Nelson was ranked? 175th. Yeah. So I'm just kind of pointing out, technically he was not a 5-star player. So actually, I believe he was ranked lower by both of those outlets than Houston Griffith was. So just trying to point that out here real quick about Kyle Hamilton's ranking, which is just another example of why rankings are irrelevant, in my opinion. Any other good comments down there, Vince? Even a super chats, anything good there?
No, they're it's starting to get off the rails a little bit.
Okay.
It's it is.
I do think this one is good though.
It's 1:29 in the morning.
Yeah.
So
I like this one.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
But they could just pay Brian to put his stuff up there.
Huh? No,
you just pay you to put your stuff over there.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it where I'm at. I like. I love.
I'm
where
not saying.
at.
I'm saying.
No. This is something different.
Oh, okay.
I love where I'm at. I love being a part of the network I'm a part of. I love having my own message board that belongs only to me. I love the fact that we have a YouTube platform that is ours. Nobody tells us what we can and can't talk about from a football standpoint. And anyone trying to say that I'm going to go to another network like Rivals to take over for there when that other people leave in January, you're out of your freaking minds. That's actually a rumor going on that insane board that you and I used to be a part of. There's people saying that I'm going to leave and go take over when BGI leaves in January 1st to go to On 3.
Oh, that
I'm going to take over Rivals.
Rivals is you're okay. Just the Notre Dame side of Rivals, or
Yes.
the whole Rivals, all of it.
Notre Dame, Notre Dame side.
What?
Yes.
Okay.
Heck no.
I mean, I started that rumor, but that's beside.
Thanks a lot, Vince. You can go do it. Do what you got to do. Hard freaking pass.
Oh, that's great.
Yes. So anyway, I just thought I'd say that one. So
yeah.
Anyway, so everybody, this was a fun night. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to dive into the film, and we're going to break the film down. And we may have a different opinion tomorrow night when we break the film down. So we'll have that conversation tomorrow. Well, tonight, Sunday, 8:00 Eastern. We'll have that conversation. We'll break down the film and really dive into what we think about this game after breaking it down. Give you a little bit more in-depth analysis. Maybe talk a little bit about the weekend and kind of a preview for the college football playoff, but that'll mostly be what we talk about on Monday.
Yes.
We'll talk briefly about Brian Kelly's press conference, and then we'll dive into sort of the weekend and how it went, getting ready for
Drew's comment. I
just saw that. I just saw
funny.
That. Yeah, not going anywhere.
No, don't worry. Mom and Dad aren't getting a divorce.
And then, of course, a reminder that Wednesday we will be having our Thanksgiving sort of fundraiser, our super chats and all that stuff. So we'll have more about that on Monday. If you didn't listen, it'll be basically we're gonna on Wednesdays 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll start our mailbag, and all the money that we raise from that day will go towards buying food for local shelters and local families in need to help make sure that they have as great of a Thanksgiving as we're all going to have. Right. So I look forward to having as many people as possible in there for that. Before you leave, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, check out the message board, sign up if you haven't already done so. I'm going to actually put the link here, Vince, in the chat right now. And if you are listening via podcast, please give us a 5-star review. We would appreciate that very, very much. And of course, check out irishbreakdown.com. So for Vince, that guy over there, I'm Brian. Everybody have a great rest of your day, great rest of your night, and we will talk to you tomorrow.